Chapter 2949. Sky Sword. Since he dares to name himself after a sword, his talent must be pretty good. I'm interested in fighting him. After Blue Heart finished speaking, Master Wan Jian's body emitted a faint battle intent. At this moment, they were in a public area, so it was impossible for them to directly release their killing intent. That would very likely offend some territories. According to what I've heard, you shouldn't be a match for Sky Sword. Even the current Night Sorrow might not be a match for him. Blue Heart said with a solemn expression. At this moment, Yuan Fengxue asked curiously, Blue Heart, where can we see the results of the second round and the final results of the previous competition? Since Tianqing could accurately state the results of our realm of the gods, he must have seen it. Oh, there's a square in front. The final results of the previous Battle of Providence are there. And the results of the first and second rounds of this competition. Blue Heart pointed at the square in the distance and said, anyway, there's still some time before the finals begin. We can go take a look and have a certain understanding of the finals. Alright. Let's go. Yuan Fengxue glanced at Blue Heart and said. As for the people of the realm of the gods, they naturally wouldn't let the two female cultivators go to the square alone to watch the fun, so they followed one after another. What a grand venue! At this moment, Wu Lingfei, who looked at the surroundings, exclaimed in admiration. Looking around, the heaven and earth here were obviously higher and wider than the realm of the gods. Some of the buildings looked extremely grand, as if they were built for ancient times. In comparison, many of the cultivators participating in the competition looked as small as ants. The 6 stone pillars in the square were so tall that they seemed to reach the sky. When the crowd got closer, they immediately saw that these 6 towering stone pillars recorded the results of the 3 rounds of the previous tournament. And the results of the first and second rounds of this Battle of Providence. The empty one was waiting for the crowd to write. So, in the second round of the Battle of Providence, the first place was the Silverhorn territory. Have any of you encountered them before? Seeing that the Silverhorn territory was first place in the second round of the Battle of Providence, Yuan Fengxue asked curiously. I did come into contact with a young girl from the Silverhorn territory. Her ability is a little special. It can hide in the sky, and no one can find it. Everyone did not have any impression of the Silverhorn territory. At this moment, Night Sorrow recounted his encounter with the silver-horned lady in the Forbidden Zone. This skill of theirs is really special. If they don't meet their nemesis, they will be invincible. After hearing Night Sorrow's description, Shao Tianxian frowned and said. Since the other party had invaded the Divine Realm's Forbidden Zone, they were enemies. He was already thinking about how to deal with them. If we encounter them again, I have a way to deal with them. Don't worry. Seeing Shao Tianxian frowning, Night Sorrow reassured him. After their last encounter, he had been thinking about how to deal with such an enemy. After careful consideration, he felt that the secret technique of the Horn clan should be effective. It's good that we have a way to deal with it. Shao Tianxian nodded and pointed at the final result of the last Battle of Providence. He said, I hope we can get a higher ranking this time and try our best to get a higher ranking. I will. I definitely will. Looking at the names on the final result list, Night Sorrow muttered. The rest of the Divine Realm's people also had solemn expressions. They knew how important their mission was. That was to at least enter the top 1,000. Otherwise, the Divine Realm's territory would be destroyed directly. You will. What will you do? Get a good result? You're just a bunch of shrimps. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded. A male cultivator in a Taoist robe slowly walked in front of Night Sorrow and the rest. He said, I didn't expect that your Divine Realm's territory would be lucky enough to enter the finals of the Battle of Providence after so many years of decline. However, with trash like you, you'll be courting death if you enter. Who are you? After this male cultivator spoke, he immediately released an extremely powerful divine realm. It suppressed the divine realm's people so much that they could not speak. Under such circumstances, Knight Sorrow released his divine realm to resist for a while and asked for the other party's name. Divine King, you have some ability to speak in front of me. How about this? If you swear to withdraw from the divine realm's territory and be loyal to me, Dao Tianming, and the Dao world, I'll forgive your disrespect. After Yi Shang spoke, Dao Tianming looked at him with a playful expression. Then he put on a fake smile and spoke. What? The Dao world? You're actually Dao Tianming from the Dao world. Upon hearing this name, the Divine Realm's people did not say anything, but Lan Xin immediately exclaimed. The Dao world. It was an existence ranked in the top 20 in the Eternal Supreme World. In the previous Battle of Providence, the Dao world had entered the top 15 and ranked 14th on the overall list. This kind of result was an existence that ordinary territories could only look up to. You're quite knowledgeable. However, it's not interesting. Dao Tianming glanced at Lan Xin and said this. However, he was clearly not interested. He still looked at Knight Sorrow and said, have you considered it? I, Dao Tianming, don't have that much patience. In fact, Knight Sorrow's strength and talent did not matter to Dao Tianming at all. He just wanted to take in a slave from the Divine Realm's territory and show off to other territories that were ranked at the top. Ha ha ha. What's the point of being a slave of the Dao world? Divine King of the Divine Realm's territory, I'll give you a chance to be my slave. I have a very high status in the Heavenly Lord's territory. Before Knight Sorrow could speak, a thin cultivator with an extremely shocking aura walked over slowly. His footsteps were very slow, but every step he took was in accordance with the Dao runes and could cross space. Han Songzi from the Heavenly Lord's territory. Why? Do you want to snatch my slave? Don't think that I'm afraid of you just because you ranked 9th in the previous Battle of Providence. Dao Tianming shouted unhappily when he saw Han Songzi walk over. He did not show any fear in the face of Han Songzi, who ranked 9th. Obviously, the difference between these territories was not very big. I don't care if you're afraid or not. Anyway, this slave in front of me has to follow me. Han Songzi observed Knight Sorrow with interest and said, yes, not bad. I like this slave of yours very much. Scoundrel. Who are you calling a slave? Before Knight Sorrow could speak, the myriad sword sect beside him shouted unhappily. The territories that were ranked at the top were indeed very strong and could suppress others until they could not breathe. However, they were really too pretentious. No one in the Divine Realm could accept the humiliation that Knight Sorrow had suffered. At that moment, besides Knight Sorrow, who was still calm, everyone else had a strong killing intent between their eyebrows. Chapter 2950. Trash like you, who gave you the right to speak? Do you want to die? After being yelled at by the 10,000 sword sect, Han Songzi was immediately enraged. He raised his hand and prepared to strike. However, after thinking about it, he retracted his hand. Interesting. How interesting. Dao Tianming, Han Songzi, what kind of servant is he that you two are fighting over? At this moment, a playful voice suddenly rang out. An ethereal figure suddenly descended from the sky. It was an extremely beautiful lady. Her dress looked like moonlight, and she had a very cold and ethereal aura. Fairy Yuan, do you want to have a share of the loot too? Dao Tianming, who did not take Han Songzi seriously, unconsciously became cautious when he saw the person who had come. This was because this Fairy Yuan came from the Moon Shadow Estate, which was ranked 5th in the previous competition. Furthermore, she was the strongest person in the Moon Shadow Estate. As for Han Songzi and Dao Tianming, they were not the strongest in their respective estates. Seeing Fairy Yuan's arrival, Han Songzi instantly became even more cautious. He said respectfully, Fairy Yuan, this is a servant from the realm of gods. I'm not interested in him, but the realm of gods has not entered the final competition for many years, which piqued my curiosity. I see. After Han Songzi finished speaking, Fairy Yuan sized up Knight Sorrow. At this moment, Night Sorrow was neither sad nor happy. It was as if everyone's topic had nothing to do with him. This made Fairy Yuan curious. After observing for a while, she said coldly, "With the Divine King's realm and the combat strength of a sovereign, your talent will be buried if you stay in the realm of gods. How about this, leave the realm of gods and join the Moon Shadow Estate. I, Yuan, will guarantee that you will advance to the peak of a sovereign within one cycle." "You're called Fairy Yuan? What's your ranking in the final competition?" Night Sorrow did not directly answer the question. Instead, he asked a question. "I, Fairy Yuan, come from the 5th-ranked Moon Shadow Estate. My personal strength is within the top 10 of this competition," Fairy Yuan said proudly. In fact, she was already being modest when she said that she was in the top 10. However, she felt that this kind of ranking and strength was enough for Night Sorrow, a cultivator from the god realm, to look up to. Seeing Night Sorrow ask about Fairy Yuan's background, Han Songzi and Dao Tianming instantly felt that they had no chance. Whether it was the strength of their territories or their individual strength, they were far inferior to Fairy Yuan. There was no competition. But right at this moment, something that surprised them happened. Night Sorrow, who had always been very calm, suddenly released a shocking killing intent. He looked at Yuan and said, "All right. I'll remember you. See you in the finals." "See you in the finals? Are you trying to make me your enemy?" When Fairy Yuan heard Night Sorrow's words, a terrifying chill immediately rose on her originally cold face. She never thought that Night Sorrow would dare to say such things to her in public. He's an enemy to begin with, so there's no need to hide it. Night Sorrow looked at Yuan without backing down and continued, "Also, the people of the god realm can be killed but not humiliated. The next time we meet, you and I will fight to the death." After Yuan finished speaking, Night Sorrow looked at Han Songzi and Dao Tianming respectively and said coldly, "The same goes for the two of you." "Ha ha ha. What a joke, what a joke. A piece of trash like you wants to challenge us. Are you people on the same level?" Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Dao Tianming laughed loudly before Yuan could say anything, as if he had heard an extremely funny joke. In terms of individual strength, Fairy Yuan was definitely in the top 10 of this finals, while Han Songzi and Dao Tianming should be in the top 100, or even the top 50. Dao Tianming felt that Night Sorrow was completely ignorant of life and death when he said that they would fight to the death. As the Divine King, he had no right to say such words. "Whether we're on the same level or not, we'll know after we meet. If I'm not wrong, you can't casually attack here. Otherwise, Han Songzi would have attacked the Sword Sect long ago. Since that's the case, we'll take our leave." Night Sorrow, who had already turned around, looked back at Dao Tianming and said these words. Then, he led the other people from the realm of gods and left the square. They found a secluded corner and waited patiently for the battle to begin. When there was no one around, Blue Heart reminded him with a serious expression, "Night Sorrow. The top-ranked territories in the finals are completely different from those in the second round. They're really incomparably powerful. You offended 3 of them just now. I'm afraid you'll be targeted in the competition. We stood in the square and didn't say anything. Didn't we also get targeted?" Night Sorrow glanced at Blue Heart and said, "If you don't want to get hurt, you'll never rely on a good attitude. It's your own fist." This had always been his principle, and it was also the law of survival of the fittest in the cultivation world. But, Blue Heart wanted to say something, but she felt that Night Sorrow was overestimating himself and couldn't persuade him. In the end, she didn't say anything and quietly left the area where the realm of gods was located. She didn't want to be associated with Night Sorrow and the others anymore. "Brother Yi, we all support you. No matter how strong the opponents are, we won't yield." After Blue Heart left, Wan Jianzong immediately said, "Even if we die in battle, we won't bend our backs." Although he had unlimited confidence in Night Sorrow, Wan Jianzong didn't dare to imagine that the realm of gods could defeat the Moon Shadow territory and enter the top 5 in the finals. "Yeah. Brother Yi, all of us support you. We'll advance and retreat together with you. Yuan Fengshui said and then apologized, it's all my fault. If I didn't insist on going to the square, we wouldn't have met with such trouble. It's fine. Whether or not we're willing to face them, the top-ranked territories are also our mortal enemies. Don't forget what happened back then. Night Sorrow said. Then, he said firmly, the opponents we met just now are indeed very strong. They're much stronger than us. But in the end, the ranking of our realm of gods might not be lower than theirs. After all, there's always a chance in any competition. Otherwise, there's no need for us to participate in the finals. We'll just be ranked directly. Yes. Night Sorrow is right. We mustn't let this affect our mood and confidence. At this time, Xiao Tianxian also comforted them. The realm of gods was not as strong as the 3 territories they had just defended. This was an indisputable fact. But the final result needed to be written in the process. Who could say for sure who would win and who would lose? Clang! 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 At this moment, 3 loud bell tolls suddenly sounded in the arena where everyone was waiting. Then, a huge battleship suddenly appeared in the sky. On the deck of the battleship stood 108 supreme martial artists. After these people appeared, the people below immediately stopped talking. Everyone knew that the finals of the battle for Providence were about to begin. Clan M. Chapter 2951. Silence. After the appearance of these 108 supreme martial artists, the scene became absolutely silent. However, there was still a Supremes on the patrolling warship who ordered everyone to be quiet. After he spoke, the waiting cultivators became even quieter. Even their breathing was controlled. Some people even held their breaths and looked up in the direction of the warship. Some people who were originally floating in the air all landed on the ground and looked up respectfully. Everyone knew that the 108 Supremes on the warship came from the 108 strongest territories. When everyone was completely silent, they looked at the warship respectfully. Supreme Yuling, who had just finished ordering everyone to be quiet, said, "Today is the final round of the Battle of Providence. According to past practice, we will invite a Supremes from the 4 great sacred lands to be the host of this final round." Supreme Yuling from the Moon Shadow Estate said solemnly, "Let us invite the Supremes from the 9 Mystical Estate, Feng Wuji." The 9 Mystical Estate is one of the 4 great sacred lands in the Eternal Supreme World. Senior Feng Wuji has also broken through the shackles of the Supremes and successfully advanced to the Earth's Supreme level. Let us welcome Senior Feng Wuji with the warmest cheers. Boom! An Earth Supreme is hosting the final round. Senior Feng Wuji is one of the few experts who have broken through to the Earth Supreme level. It's really worth the trip to see him. After Supreme Yuling finished speaking, many people cheered. The 4 great sacred lands, the 9 Mystical Estate, the Sky Owl Estate, the Immortal Extinction Estate, and the Life Extension Estate, were all existences that the other territories looked up to. The positions of the top 10 territories were constantly changing, but the 4 great sacred lands had not changed for countless years. Hello, I am Feng Wuji from the 9 Mystical Estate. Amidst the cheers, a figure silently appeared on the warship. He walked to the front of the deck, stood on the dragon-shaped mast, and introduced himself softly. Although his voice was soft, it was as if he was speaking beside everyone's ears. Even Night Sorrow and the others who were standing at the outermost circle felt that he was talking to them. It was a special feeling. Limitless Earth Sovereign. Limitless Earth Sovereign. Limitless Earth Sovereign. After Feng Wuji appeared, many people immediately cheered. Most of the cultivators were seeing an Earth Sovereign for the first time. Knowing that he was a true master of the Eternal Supreme World, he was very excited. On Feng Wuji's body, there was not a trace of divine power fluctuation, nor did he release any divine domain. However, he could clearly sense his strength. His understanding of power seemed to be different from all the other cultivators present. Although they were called Earth Sovereigns, there was a huge difference between sovereigns and sovereigns. They gave people a feeling that they had returned to their original state. Silence. Let's listen to Lord Earth Sovereign explain the rules of the finals. At this moment, the scene was a little noisy. Feng Wuji did not say anything, and Supreme Yuling immediately cleared the place. After the crowd quieted down again, Feng Wuji said, "First of all, congratulations to everyone for entering the finals. Out of all the teams that made it to the finals, the one that surprised me the most was the Realm of the Gods. Welcome back to this stage." When he spoke up to this point, Feng Wuji shot his gaze towards Yi Shang and the others. Under his seemingly gentle gaze, everyone, including Night Sorrow, immediately felt like they had been seen through. They felt a chill in their hearts. They knew that the other party was not doing this out of kindness. He was trying to expose them to the public and make them the target of public criticism. Thank you for your attention, Supremes. Although the other party was not expressing kindness, Night Sorrow still paid attention out of courtesy. At this moment, the cultivators of the Realm of the Gods instantly became lively. Especially those with the most outstanding strength. They looked at the Realm of the Gods with a playful gaze. Although they did not participate in the operation against the Realm of the Gods, they knew very well about the supreme longevity. Many of them secretly remembered the aura of the people from the Realm of the Gods. Under such circumstances, the people from the Realm of the Gods did not dare to be dissatisfied. This was because an Earth Sovereign was definitely much more powerful than a Supreme. If they showed any disrespect, they would be killed immediately. Hehe, very good. Looks like another peerless genius has appeared in the Realm of the Gods. Feng Wuji glanced at Night Sorrow with a smile. Then, he sent a ray of light into Night Sorrow's body and said, "This is the Earth Sovereign's rules and essence that I'm giving to you. After absorbing it, you will soon break through to the ruler realm. If you make good use of it in the finals, you will have a bright future." After Feng Wuji said this, the expressions of the cultivators at the scene changed completely. Their gazes towards Night Sorrow instantly turned crazy. Including the rulers of the 4 great sacred grounds, no one was not interested in the rules and essence of the Earth Sovereign. Although they knew that the rules and essence that Feng Wuji had sent out was only a small part of it, everyone was still crazy about it. A man's wealth is his own ruin. This Feng Wuji, on the surface, seems to be helping me. In reality, he's obviously setting me up. What a vicious guy. You must have been one of the people who went against the supreme longevity. Is this how a so-called Earth Sovereign should behave? He's bullying a mere divine king. You're indeed not a good person. Night Sorrow's heart was as clear as a mirror when he sensed the rules and essence of the Earth Sovereign that Feng Wuji had sent out. He gave it a try, but it was impossible for him to absorb the rules and essence with his current cultivation. Feng Wuji was obviously toying with him, trying to lure the cultivators of the other territories to pick on him. There was anger in his heart, but Yi Shang forcefully suppressed it. He said with a smile, "Yi Shang thanks limitless earthly sovereign for his kind intentions. I'll try my best to protect the rules and essence of the Earth Sovereign." "All right. 10 talents. Feng Wuji said with a fake smile. He then shifted his gaze elsewhere and said, "Let's get to the main topic. The rules of the finals are as follows. The top 32 teams from the previous tournament will be the seeded teams in the 32 small worlds. There will be 100 teams in each small world to compete for the final ranking. The teams will enter the next round according to their ranking. The first team will enter the top 32 teams. The second team will enter the 33 to 64 teams, and so on." Feng Wuji paused for a moment before continuing, "This round is the same as the second round of the tournament. Everyone will have an identity badge. This badge can be used to calculate the points and also to save your life. If you choose to save your life or be killed by the cultivators of the other territories, your points will all become your opponent's points. Now, let's start drawing lots. Apart from the top 32 territories, each territory will send a representative to draw lots on the battleship. Clan M. Chapter 2952. After Feng Wuji finished speaking, all the teams that had entered the finals of the Battle for Providence but were not in the top 32 of the previous competition sent out their representatives and flew toward the battleship. The representative sent by the divine world was naturally Night Sorrow. In the process of flying toward the battleship, Night Sorrow was targeted and felt that it was very difficult to fly up. Because of the great pressure, he was the last to fly to the battleship. At that moment, the group drawing had actually ended. Feng Wuji sneered and let Night Sorrow be the last to participate in the drawing. After the last lot was drawn, he realized that it had the number 16 written on it. You're lucky to be in the 16th group. However, to the divine world, the result is the same no matter where you draw. After Feng Wuji took the sign from Yishang's hand, he immediately sneered and said. Although he did not directly attack Night Sorrow, ever since he appeared, he had been making things difficult for Night Sorrow. Perhaps. Facing Feng Wuji, Night Sorrow indeed did not have the strength to contend against him, but he did not show weakness. He replied with a normal expression. I hope you will be like supreme longevity and not disappoint us. Feng Wuji glanced at Night Sorrow contemptuously and left directly. He was not interested in the subsequent announcement of the groups at all. After Feng Wuji left, the contestants of many territories also immediately returned to their battleships and returned to their own camps. Before long, Supreme Yuling created a huge 32 sparkling and translucent jade cards and suspended them in the void. Everyone looked at the jade cards and saw that the participating territories of the 32 groups were engraved on them. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Our group seed territory is the Dao World territory where Dao Tianming is. We have to be careful. After seeing the Dao World territory, the Myriad Sword sect immediately frowned and said. Obviously, Dao Tianming of the Dao World territory had the intention of targeting the Divine World territory. Now that they were in the same group, it went without saying. At that moment, Night Sorrow said with a smile, there are many places we need to be careful of. Look at the way the other territories look at us. While the 10,000 Swords sect was observing the Jade token, Night Sorrow was using the Sea Serpent's Eye to observe the other territories in all directions. He realized that the other territories that were assigned to the Heavenly Realm were all very excited, as if they had picked up a treasure. What they want is the earthly sovereign rules and essence in your body. Xiao Tianxian looked around and said, that so-called earthly sovereign is really despicable. His status is so high, yet he used such a despicable method on us. Actually, what he did was not bad. At the very least, it was an open scheme and not a conspiracy. We can think of a way to deal with it. Night Sorrow said and continued to look at the jade pendant. He realized that the saying enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road was indeed true. Besides the Dao World territory, there were also the Heaven Immortal territory and the Silverhorn territory in their group. It was unknown if it was a coincidence, or if someone had used some means to interfere with the grouping. After seeing the names of the Heaven Immortal territory and the Silverhorn territory, Night Sorrow said, after entering the small world, we'd better find a good position and set up a more powerful array. This way, if others want to deal with us, they will first enter the array. In that case, the rules and essence in my body are more like bait. Good. This is a good idea. The other territories are so jealous of you, so we'll teach them a thorough lesson. The 10,000 Swords sect said ruthlessly. Like the others in the Heavenly Realm territory, he was also holding his breath and wanted to bring back good results for the Heavenly Realm territory. At the very least, he wanted to be in the top 30 of the group. Who do you want to teach these pieces of trash a lesson? At that moment, Dao Tianming led some people from the Dao World territory over from afar. Upon hearing the 10,000 Swords sect's words, he immediately said disdainfully. What are you pretending for? If you have the ability, do it here. The 10,000 Swords sect replied disdainfully after looking back at the overbearing Dao Tianming. He. So what if I do it? Do you think I don't dare? Upon hearing the 10,000 Swords sect's words, Dao Tianming smiled and suddenly slapped him. This slap was so fast that even Night Sorrow could not react in time. Boom! The 10,000 Swords sect was directly sent flying. Now that I've made a move, what can you do? Dao Tianming looked disdainfully at the 10,000 Swords sect, who was lying on the ground, and then looked coldly at Night Sorrow and said, "What can you do?" "I can't do anything, but I'll kill you in the finals." Night Sorrow glanced at the battleship above his head and realized that the supreme being on it did not seem to have seen what was happening before him. It was clear that Dao Tianming had definitely received some kind of hint, which was why he dared to attack the 10,000 Swords sect. He said coldly, "Ha ha ha. You want to kill me? Fine, I'll wait for you." Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, Dao Tianming laughed loudly. However, he did not attack Night Sorrow. He turned around and left. After Dao Tianming left, Night Sorrow realized that the people of the Divine Immortal Territory and Silverhorn Territory were all looking at him attentively. However, he did not care about this at all. Instead, he helped the 10,000 Swords sect up and fed him a healing pill. He said, "Don't worry, Brother Wan. I'll definitely avenge you. Brother Yi, you can avenge the 10,000 Swords sect yourself. If you attack, I hope you can leave him alive." A trace of hatred flashed across the 10,000 Swords sect's face. He cared a lot about his image. Now that he was beaten up by Dao Tianming in public, he was very resentful. Night Sorrow nodded and did not say anything else. The other people of the Heavenly Realm territory talked about their own matters. After they finished talking, Supreme Being Yuling appeared again. She said, "Next, we'll send you into the corresponding small worlds. In these small worlds, there will be countless dark creatures. The strongest among them is already at the Supreme Being realm. Your mission is to try your best to kill the dark creatures and people of the other territories. Your final ranking will be determined by your points." After saying that, Supreme Being Yuling took out a huge jade talisman and floated it in the air. On the jade talisman were descriptions of various dark creatures and their points. Ordinary sovereign dark creatures were only worth 1 point. Supreme Being dark creatures were worth 999 points. As for the cultivators of the other territories, each of them were worth 10 points. However, killing cultivators of the other territories would give them the points they got from killing the dark creatures. After everyone finished reading the rules, Supreme Being Yuling continued, "Prepare yourselves. I'll activate the teleportation portal next. Remember, the battle in the small worlds will end in 100 years. Genius memorized this site's address. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2953. After Supremacy Yuling spoke, many participants became nervous. Everyone from the realm of gods looked at each other and nodded, giving each other confidence. While they were nodding at each other, Supremacy Yuling and the other supremacies controlled the teleportation portals and teleported everyone to their respective small worlds. After that, Yuling walked into the cabin of the battleship to meet Feng Wuji. After entering Feng Wuji's room, Yuling bowed and said, "Sir, I've done what you asked me to do. The realm of gods should be teleported to the center of the small worlds. It's basically impossible for them to avoid the other territories. Now, you can watch how they're killed. You've done well." When Feng Wuji heard Yuling's words, he responded with a fake smile and continued, "There's no need to rush to watch the battle. I called you here because there's something I want to discuss with you." "Oh. Sir, if you have anything to say, just tell me." Hearing this, Yuling said in fear. Although he came from the 5th territory, Moon Shadow Estate, he was still very afraid of an Earth supremacy like Feng Wuji. Not only has our 9 mystical estate not gotten first place in the battle for Providence for many years, but we've also been ranked 4th for more than 10 times. This is definitely a disgrace. What do you think I should do to let our 9 mystical estate win first place? Feng Wuji played with 2 jade balls the size of fingernails in his hands. This simple action brought a lot of pressure to Supremacy Yuling. He thought for a while and said, "Sir, I have no way to let the 9 mystical estate win first place. But it's not a big problem to get into the top 3. As long as there's no seeding in the battle for the top 32, we'll draw lots and let the Sky Owl Estate, Celestial Extinction Estate, and Life Extension Estate meet in advance. It'll be easy for the 9 mystical estate to get into the top 3. Good. When it comes to the battle for the top 32, the rules will be set like this. Feng Wuji nodded in satisfaction after he understood Supremacy Yuling's words. Then, he murmured in an almost undetectable voice, Supreme Longevity, can you really return like you said back then? Feng Wuji still felt a lingering fear when he recalled the battle against the Supreme Longevity. At that time, the Supreme Longevity had already successfully become an earthly sovereign before anyone else. His strength was the best in the entire eternal sovereign world, but his realm had not yet stabilized. However, he was besieged by the super-experts of dozens of territories and eventually died. As for the Divine Realm territory, the fact that it could survive until today was not because it had accumulated enough karmic luck. It was a message left behind by the various territories when they feared the fall of the Supreme Longevity. When I return, I will destroy the God world. The 9 heavens and 10 earths will definitely be destroyed. In other words, if these territories didn't destroy the territories of the God realm, then what happened today would be considered a personal grudge. If a territory destroyed a territory in the divine realm, then when he returned, he would destroy that territory. It was precisely because they were afraid of the return of the Supreme Longevity that some of the territories ranked at the top, although they targeted the territories of the heavenly realm, did not make the final move. When their providence ran out, they would naturally die. My lord, is it really possible for the Supreme Longevity to return after being dead for so many years? Even if he does return, he shouldn't be able to keep up with you adults, right? After all, your cultivation realm has already surpassed his back then. Hearing Feng Wuji's murmurs, Supreme Yuling asked doubtfully. You don't understand how talented the Supreme Longevity is. Actually, the reason why we are where we are today is because we plucked the fruits of his labor. If he really returns, it will definitely cause a huge commotion. However, the final outcome will still be his death. Feng Wuji said solemnly. At this point, he ordered, you go out and take care of the situation. Yes. My lord. After Supreme Yuling left Feng Wuji's place, she returned to the deck and looked at the 32 jade tokens floating in the air with the others. At this time, the jade tokens were filled with images of the territories' battles. Every single one of the 3,200 territories appeared in the images. Supreme Yuling's gaze immediately locked onto the territories of the Divine Realm. At this time, the territories of the Divine Realm had just landed on a plane in the small world. This plane had a radius of several million li, and the surface of the plane was filled with green grass that was as tall as a person. When the wind blew, the green grass would undulate continuously, looking like a wheat field. The scary thing was that when the green grass was bent by the wind, countless short ferocious beasts appeared from the grass. These ferocious beasts looked a little like wolves, but upon closer inspection, they were different. They looked more like ordinary wolves that had been thrown into lava and were quickly fished out. They looked extremely ugly. Hee, it's indeed the center of the small world. Let's see how you all survive. Looking at the ferocious beasts that appeared in the images, Supreme Yuling revealed a cold smile. She knew very well that the only supreme-level ferocious beast in this small world was hidden in this boundless plain. If the territories of the Divine Realm fought too fiercely with these ferocious beasts, it would definitely be lured out. Just as Supreme Yuling was observing the people of the Divine Realm, Knight Sorrow, who had activated the clam dragon's eye, saw everything clearly. As he sucked in a breath of cold air, he realized that the number of ferocious beasts was practically endless. He immediately thought of a countermeasure. After all, these ferocious beasts were all at the Dominator level. If they fought them head-on, they would definitely not be able to win. Brother Yi, why do you look so pale? Isn't it just some ferocious beasts around? At this moment, Master Wan Jian saw that Yi Shang's expression did not look too good. He had already noticed the ferocious beasts around, but he could not see as far as Knight Sorrow. Things are not that simple. There are too many ferocious beasts around us to count. Let's prepare the battleship and use it to escape. After thinking for a moment, Knight Sorrow finally revealed the truth. He knew that the divine realm had no chance of winning against so many ferocious beasts in this vast plain. I have a battleship here. Hearing Knight Sorrow's words, Jin Xian immediately spoke up. Shui Changtian also nodded and told everyone that he had a battleship as well. I know these two battleships. Jin Xian, take out the battleship. Everyone, get on the battleship and we will leave immediately. Knight Sorrow said decisively. The ferocious beasts were still summoning their companions to attack. He wanted to use this opportunity to ask Jin Xian to summon the battleship and bring everyone away. All right. I'll summon it now. But just as Jin Xian was about to summon the battleship, all of a sudden, the wolf-shaped beasts roared and charged at the people from the divine world. Genius memorized the address of this site. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2954. Not good. A large number of wolf-shaped beasts are pouncing on us. If we summon the battleship now, it will definitely become a target for everyone. It will be destroyed by them very soon. Let's fight first and wait for the right time to summon the battleship. Knight Sorrow said and continued, there are too many wolf-shaped beasts. We are definitely no match for them. Therefore, we need to test their weakness. As long as we find out what they are afraid of, we can leave safely. All right. Let me test out the Great Deity Sword technique. Seeing a large number of wolf-shaped beasts pouncing on them, Master Wan Jian immediately used the Great Deity Sword technique and transformed into a giant sword to meet them. Asterisk boom. Asterisk Master Wan Jian, who had transformed into a giant sword, suddenly killed all the wolf-shaped beasts in front of him. These wolf-shaped beasts are not too strong. Each of us can deal with some of them. Master Wan Jian immediately shouted after making his move. However, he soon realized that after he made his move, the number of wolf-shaped beasts around him had increased by a lot. Looking around, within a radius of 100,000 miles, there was a dense pack of wolf-shaped beasts. This scene made his hair stand on end. Everyone, form a circle. Try your best to use more tricks. Just like Knight Sorrow said, as long as we find out the weakness of these wolf-shaped beasts, we will be able to survive. Seeing a large number of wolf-shaped beasts surrounding them, Xiao Tianxian immediately shouted. After that, the 10 people of the heavenly realm spread out and left their backs to the others as they fought with the wolf-shaped beasts. Although the wolf-shaped beasts were not too strong, and were even weaker than the weakest ruler, there were too many of them, and they brought a lot of pressure to them. After fighting for about 15 minutes, everyone tried all kinds of attacks. Although the effect was not bad, they did not find anything that could make them afraid. Knight Sorrow, who was in the middle of the battle, thought to himself, even the power of virtue could not make them afraid. What are these beasts afraid of? Fighting like this is not the way to go. After thinking for a moment, he shouted, everyone, try using all kinds of elemental attacks. All right. Everyone, use your elemental attacks. Jin Xian also shouted in a low voice. As the battle progressed, Jin Xian, who was the weakest among them, gradually felt the pressure. As for the weaker Wu Ling Fei, with Knight Sorrow taking care of her, her situation was much better. However, the eternal sovereign world was different from the deity world. As a higher-level world, the eternal sovereign world was obviously more perfect. Everyone could basically cultivate the complete taboo attribute. Therefore, no one would use ordinary attribute attacks. After Knight Sorrow spoke, everyone began to use their metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and other elements. However, as the battle progressed, the people of the heavenly world realized that these wolf-shaped beasts were not afraid of any element. The single elemental attack they used was not effective at all. Even if Knight Sorrow used his power of merit without holding back, it would not have much of an effect. Moreover, as the battle went on, more and more wolf-like ominous beasts appeared. Nie Zhonglin and Jin Xian, who were relatively weaker, were gradually unable to hold on any longer. Ha! You bunch of trash, your combat power is stronger than I expected. But so what? The dire wolves are endless, how can you resist them? Supreme Yuling, who was standing on the deck of the warship, saw that the people of the heavenly world were becoming more and more wretched. At this time, Feng Wuji's voice rang in her ears. Well done. Thank you for the compliment, everyone. Supreme Yuling immediately replied in fear. Don't be afraid, continue watching the show. Feng Wuji said again and then went completely silent, continuing to observe the battle. He was looking to see if there was any reincarnation of supreme longevity among the people of the heavenly world. However, after a while, he did not find anything. After all, Night Sorrow and the rest did not have any similarities with the methods used by supreme longevity. While Feng Wuji and Yu Ling were observing them, Night Sorrow and the rest's battle became more and more difficult. It was not only Nie Zhonglin and Jin Xian who were injured. Murong Zhenlu and Yuan Fengxue were also not having it easy. These dire wolves were so crazy that they did not fear death. After their companions were killed, they became even more ferocious. Brother Yi, what should we do? If we continue fighting, I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on. These wolf-like beasts are getting more and more terrifying. Seeing the situation in front of them, Master Wan Jian, who was also feeling the pressure, frowned and shouted. Just as he said, if this battle continued, what awaited them would definitely be death. The situation in front of them was obviously more difficult than what they encountered in the blood-colored star. Although the battle in the blood-colored star was difficult, there was still hope. The battle in front of them gave them a feeling of endless suffering. We can't go on like this. I'll use my supreme artifact to buy you some time. Get on the battleship and escape. I'll catch up to you. After opening the sea serpent's eye and observing for a while, Night Sorrow realized that the dire wolves were still attacking from afar. He knew that the situation in front of them was not easy to solve. He immediately took out the golden heavenly halberd that had been upgraded to a supreme artifact. And he smashed it on the grass. Boom! With just a simple smash, an endless amount of energy ripples spread out and blasted towards the dire wolves. Like a wave, all the dire wolves within dozens of miles were killed. A supreme artifact is indeed extraordinary. Seeing the power of Night Sorrow's golden heavenly halberd, the rest of the people in the divine realm praised. You guys go quickly. I'll cover you. Originally, Night Sorrow did not want to use the golden heavenly halberd so quickly because it was his trump card. But the pressure in front of them was too great. If he did not use it, the people in the divine realm would have no chance of survival. Everyone, go quickly. Follow me. At this time, Jin Xian decisively summoned the battleship and asked everyone to board it. When everyone boarded the battleship, a large number of dire wolves attacked and flew into the void. At this time, Night Sorrow summoned the golden heavenly halberd and blasted out a spear technique similar to the fiery demon spear. Immediately, a large area of flames was blasted out in the void. After being blasted by the supreme artifact's flames, most of the dire wolves were killed. The pressure on the battleship was obviously reduced by a lot. They can't withstand the supreme artifact's energy. Everyone, go quickly. I can hold off these wolf-shaped beasts. The golden heavenly halberd's attack quickly turned a large number of dire wolves into ashes. Night Sorrow immediately felt relieved. These dire wolves were not afraid of all kinds of attacks, but they were obviously suppressed by the supreme artifact's attacks. The supreme artifact's attacks should be their only weakness. After fighting for a while more, the battleship had completely arrived in the void. The number of dire wolves that could catch up to them was decreasing. Everyone in the divine realm heaved a sigh of relief. It was really dangerous. If it wasn't for Brother Ye's supreme artifact, we would have died. Yuan Fengxue patted his heaving chest and said. But at this time, a loud wolf howl suddenly sounded from the vast grassland. Genius remembered this address in a second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2955. As soon as the wolf howled, the dire wolves that were charging towards Night Sorrow and the battleship immediately stopped. However, Night Sorrow and the rest did not feel lucky because of this. That was because the howl had caused everyone present to tremble from the depths of their souls. It was obvious that this was a supreme world-class ferocious beast. Although Night Sorrow had a real Supreme Realm artifact, he still had no chance of winning against a Supreme Realm beast. Oh no! There's actually a Supreme Realm dire wolf on this grassland. Let's run. Night Sorrow, who shouted this, had a completely changed expression. Because he knew that a Supreme Realm dire wolf was not something they could deal with. At this moment, he could only hope that the Supreme Realm dire wolf was further away from them. That way, they would have a higher chance of survival. Little bastard, I didn't expect you to have a Supreme Realm artifact. But so what? Let's see how you block the Supreme Realm dire wolf's attack. Supreme Yuling, who was watching from the deck, revealed a smug and sinister smile. He was very surprised that Night Sorrow, who was born in a territory that had declined for a long time, could still take out a Supreme Realm artifact. However, after the appearance of the Supreme Realm dire wolf, he completely calmed down and watched the show calmly. Brother Yi, which direction should we escape in? After the battleship started moving, Jin Xian asked with a trembling voice. At this moment, he was very afraid that he would choose the wrong direction and fly towards the Supreme Realm dire wolf. Fly this way. Night Sorrow, who had noticed the direction where the wolves were worshipping, pointed in the opposite direction. He guessed that the direction where the wolves were worshipping was definitely where the Supreme Realm dire wolf was. Okay. Jin Xian replied and drove the battleship in the direction that Night Sorrow had pointed. After worshipping, the numerous dire wolves quickly resumed their pursuit and chased in the direction of the battleship. At the Dominator realm, flying was no longer a problem for these dire wolves. In an instant, countless dire wolves crazily chased behind the flying battleship. Awoo! At this moment, the huge wolf howl sounded from afar again. Xiao Tianxian said with a headache, not good. The supreme level dire wolf is getting closer and closer. At this moment, Night Sorrow walked to Jin Xian's side and said, let me pilot the battleship. Good. Then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Yi. Jin Xian, whose forehead was already covered in sweat, gave up his position to Night Sorrow. Together with the others, he stood at the rear of the battleship and attacked the dire wolves that had caught up to them, preventing them from boarding the battleship. These dire wolves are really fast. Master Wan Jian, who was standing at the stern of the ship, couldn't help but sigh as he blocked the dire wolf with his sword. The speed of these dire wolves was clearly faster than a cultivator like him. If it wasn't for the fact that his strength was ordinary, then he was truly heaven-defying. If we can't even shake off the ordinary dire wolves, then the sovereign dire wolves will definitely catch up to us. Yuan Fengxue, who was blocking the dire wolves beside the myriad sword sect, frowned as he spoke. Hearing this, the faces of Murong Zhenlu and the others turned ugly. A dire wolf king was definitely stronger than an ordinary dire wolf. This was a very simple logic. After thinking for a moment, they felt that the Supreme Wolf King would definitely catch up. Thinking of this, Xiao Tianxian immediately sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow, can we still speed up a little? At this rate, the Supreme Wolf King will definitely catch up. I'll do my best. This battleship consumes eternal god crystals at this speed. Night Sorrow replied to Xiao Tianxian and began to think about what to use as a source of energy for the battleship. After thinking for a moment, Night Sorrow's eyes suddenly lit up. He took out some Sovereign's essence and used it as a source of energy for the battleship. After absorbing the Sovereign's essence, the battleship's speed had indeed increased by 30 to 40%. After the battleship's speed increased, most of the dire wolves were gradually pulled apart. Less than a tenth of them were still able to keep up. In this way, the pressure on Myriad Sword Sect and Xiao Tianxian and the others was reduced by a lot. However, before everyone could laugh, the third wolf howl resounded in the void. This time, the wolf howl sounded much clearer than the previous two times. The expressions of Myriad Sword Sect and the others immediately changed. He bit his lips and said helplessly, the Supreme Wolf King is getting closer and closer. It's getting more and more dangerous. I don't know what to do. I'm also very helpless. Xiao Tianxian also sighed. They had no way to deal with the Supreme Wolf King. They could only try their best to resist these ordinary dire wolves. Ha ha ha. I'll see how you guys die. Yu Ling, who was watching all of this, had a sinister smile on his face. Seeing the Supreme Wolf King getting closer and closer to the heavenly realm, his smile became brighter and brighter. However, at this moment, he suddenly realized that the heavenly realm battleship's speed had increased by a lot again. After this time, the heavenly realm battleship had almost shaken off all the ordinary dire wolves. Even the Supreme Wolf King was a little further away from them. Damn it, what's going on? What happened? Yu Ling muttered gloomily when he saw the scene in front of him. I'm afraid they're using the supreme law to power the battleship. At this moment, Feng Wuji's cold voice suddenly sounded. They have the Supreme Wolf King's essence on them. Yu Ling heard Feng Wuji's voice and said in disbelief. Although the heavenly realm has declined, it's not a big deal to have some supreme law and essence. Feng Wuji's brows were more indifferent. After saying that, he continued, not only that, he has the Earth Supreme Wolf King's essence on him. This time, he shouldn't die. It's really too easy for these ants. Yu Ling said fiercely. He was not satisfied that he did not wipe out the entire heavenly realm battleship. What do you know? If they are eliminated so early, how can we be sure that there's a reincarnation of the supreme longevity among them? Feng Wuji said emotionlessly. However, Yu Ling could hear the sinister meaning in his words. In the small world, after Night Sorrow used the Supreme Wolf King's essence, he quickly shook off the dire wolves and the Supreme Wolf King. However, after being shaken off, the Supreme Wolf King once again howled and burned its bloodline power to chase after him. Not long after, the Heavenly Realm battleships could clearly see the Supreme Wolf King's figure. The Supreme Wolf King was 1,000 times bigger than the ordinary dire wolves. It had a pair of wings and looked extremely ferocious, like a devil from hell. We're definitely no match for it now. There's only one way left. The Heavenly Realm battleship's faces changed. Under such circumstances, Night Sorrow used the Earth Supreme Wolf King's essence that Feng Wuji had injected into his body. The Earth Supreme Wolf King could not absorb the Earth Supreme Wolf King's essence, nor could it be swatted out of his body. However, if he cut off the Earth Supreme Wolf King's essence along with his flesh, the battleship could absorb it. After absorbing the Earth Supreme Wolf King's essence, the battleship lifted up again in an instant and quickly shook the Supreme Wolf King off as it disappeared into the horizon. However, just as it shook the Supreme Wolf King off, the battleship exploded with a boom. Clan. Chapter 2956. The reason why the battleship exploded was because it could not withstand the Earth Supreme's essence. Just as it escaped from the Supreme Wolf King's tracking range, it exploded in midair. Boom! Everyone, including Night Sorrow, was injured by the explosion. The place where they fell was on a mountain peak with countless towering boulders. The mountain peak looked like a giant sword, but with countless boulders pressing down on it, it was as if the sword was sealed. After observing the terrain, Night Sorrow set up a simple concealment array and said, "Everyone, quickly adjust your state. This small world should not be that big. There are only 100 territories. It's easy to encounter them. Night Sorrow, how are you?" Everyone began to heal themselves. Wu Lingfei walked to Night Sorrow and asked with a pained heart. The flesh that Night Sorrow had cut off for the battleship looked terrifying. "Don't worry, Sister Fei. I'm fine." Night Sorrow smiled, indicating that he was fine. At the same time, he swallowed a few pills and sat on the ground to recover. Seeing that the heavenly realm had successfully shaken off the Supreme Wolf King and had begun to recover, Yu Ling, who was unwilling to give up, looked at Feng Wuji cautiously and asked, "Sir, could there be a reincarnation of eternal life supremacy among these ants?" "I'm not sure either. But this time, if the heavenly realm does not enter the top 1,000, the heavenly realm's providence will not last until the next battle of providence. At that time, the heavenly realm will naturally be destroyed. So, this is the only chance for the heavenly realm. I believe that if Supreme Longevity can be reincarnated, he will definitely appear. Otherwise, he will be completely dead. Feng Wuji looked at everyone who was recovering and said, but they have killed more than 3,000 dire beasts and are temporarily ranked first in this group. It's my fault. Yu Ling broke out in cold sweat when she heard Feng Wuji's words. Originally, he wanted to deal with the heavenly realm, so he let them land in the central area with the most dire beasts. But the heavenly realm's people were obviously very strong, especially Night Sorrow. With his supreme artifact, he killed hundreds of dire beasts in no time. He had gained a lot of points for the heavenly realm. If I'm not wrong, they've set up a concealment formation. Furthermore, the level of this formation wasn't something that ordinary sovereigns could detect. So that they, who had more than 3,000 points, could continue to hide like this. It was very likely that he would enter the top 30 of this group. Hurry up and think of something. Feng Wuji instructed. He wanted to force the immortal realm into a corner and see if someone would suddenly explode. Don't worry, my lord. I have a way to deal with them. At this time, Yu Ling took out 3 crystal-clear jade stones from her waist and spoke to them. Then, he looked at Feng Wuji and said, my lord. Someone has gone to deal with them. How strong are the people who dealt with them? If he was too weak, he wouldn't be a match for the Divine King. Him controlling a supreme divine artifact isn't what ordinary sovereigns can contend with. Feng Wuji said with a cold snort. Don't worry, my lord. I've contacted the people from the celestial immortal territory. Their captain, Sky Sword, is a rare genius of the Sword Dao. With him taking action, we'll definitely be able to figure out the depths of the people from the divine world. Yu Ling promised solemnly. She felt that this was not enough and continued, if they're not enough, there's still the Silverhorn territory and the Dao World territory. No matter how strong they are, they won't be a match for the Dao World territory. Yes, you've done well. Feng Wuji nodded in satisfaction. At this moment, in the small world, the people from the celestial immortal territory received the news that Yu Ling had cheated and immediately rushed to the location of the people from the divine world territory. However, they were not close. By the time Sky Sword arrived with his men, Night Sorrow and the others had completely recovered. He. You bastards from the divine world territory, you really made me look for you. After arriving at the location of the divine world territory, Tian Qing could not see Night Sorrow and the others. However, he still shouted at the location that Yu Ling had pointed out. I didn't expect you to see through my concealment Dharma array. Night Sorrow, who did not expect Yu Ling to be commanding everything outside, thought that Tian Qing and the others had seen through the concealment array. He immediately walked out of the array. Were you the one who killed Ji Yun? Did Ji Feng also die in your hands? Seeing the people from the divine world territory walk out of the concealment array one after another, Sky Sword, whose eyebrows were like 10,000 years old ice, immediately snorted coldly. Night Sorrow had the mark left behind by Ji Yun's father, so he recognized him immediately. Yes. Night Sorrow looked at Sky Sword and said, you're much stronger than Ji Feng. It's good that you know. Sky Sword snorted and pointed at Night Sorrow. Leave this person to me. You guys go and kill the others. Yes. Hearing Sky Sword's order, the other 20 overcultivators from the celestial immortal territory all drew their swords. Every one of them had a sword as their divine weapon. Ha ha. Leave this beauty to me. Tian Qing pointed at Wu Lingfei, revealing a greedy expression between his brows. You're courting death. I'll fight Sky Sword and Tian Qing. You guys use the joint attack array to fight against the others. Seeing Tian Qing's gaze on Wu Lingfei, Night Sorrow immediately flew into a rage. He pointed at Sky Sword and Tian Qing and directly took out his supreme divine weapon, Golden Heavenly Halberd. Night Sorrow was clear that in comparison, the strength of the divine realm territory was clearly weaker than the celestial immortal territory. He had to go all out. N. Supreme Divine Weapon, it's actually a Supreme Divine Weapon. Along with the Earth's sovereign law and essence in your body, they all belong to me. When Sky Sword saw Night Sorrow take out his Supreme Divine Weapon, Golden Heavenly Halberd, not only did he not panic, the corners of his mouth even revealed a trace of a smile. Following that, he also took out his own divine weapon. It's actually also a Supreme Divine Weapon, but it's a silver sword that can let out a dragon's roar. Good sword. Brother Juan, I will give this sword to you as a gift. Seeing the silver sword in Sky Sword's hand, Night Sorrow immediately roared. Audacious. You're about to die and still dare to be stubborn. Kill for me. When Sky Sword heard Night Sorrow's words, he was completely enraged. With a roar, he thrusted his sword at Yi Sorrow. This sword was a probing attack. He did not use his absolute art, but the power was similarly huge. The moment Sky Sword attacked, Tian Qing hesitated and did not make a move. He was afraid of angering Sky Sword. Therefore, he followed the original plan and directly attacked Wu Lingfei. You're courting death. Seeing Tian Qing attack Wu Lingfei, Night Sorrow immediately used the Void Dragon movement technique. Under the situation of dodging Sky Sword's attack, he blocked in front of Tian Qing and used the Reincarnation Spear technique. Boom! With a loud sound, Tian Qing was immediately sent flying. The strength of the two of you is only so-so. Come at me together. Night Sorrow, who sent Tian Qing flying, coldly snorted. Wu Lingfei gave him a grateful expression and cooperated with Myriad Sword Sect to fight Xiao Tianxian. Clan M. Chapter 2957. Although Wu Lingfei's strength could not be compared to Night Sorrow's, even in the realm of gods, she was the weakest. However, her comprehension was very good. With Thousand Sword Sect and Xiao Tianxuan's joint attack, she immediately made up for her disadvantage in strength. Moreover, Thousand Sword Sect and Xiao Tianxian knew that she was Night Sorrow's important relative and took good care of her. In the battle, Wu Lingfei did not encounter any danger. Since you want to die, don't blame us for bullying you with numbers. Tian Qing, don't worry about my face. Let's attack together and kill him. On the other side, Sky Sword's face turned black after being scolded by Night Sorrow. He ordered Tian Qing to fight Night Sorrow with him. He wanted to use the fastest speed to get rid of Night Sorrow and the realm of gods. Because this was not a battle of honor, but a battle to extinguish under Yu Ling's command. Good. I was worried that if I interfered, it would cause you to be unhappy. Since that's the case, I have nothing to worry about. Hearing Sky Sword's words, Tian Qing, who was injured, immediately became spirited. Looking at Night Sorrow, he gritted his teeth and said, I will use the sword in my hand to cut you into pieces. I hope the sword in your hand is as sharp as your mouth. Night Sorrow looked at Tian Qing and used his divine sense to sense the situation of the others. At this time, the people from the realm of gods and the people from the realm of gods had just started fighting. The number of people from the realm of gods was about twice the number of people from the realm of gods. Basically, it was 2 against 1. However, the cultivators from the realm of gods could use joint attacks to make up for the disadvantage in numbers. However, overall, although the realm of gods did not have any casualties after the battle, they were still at a disadvantage overall. Overconfident fool, you're just the divine king. How dare you be so arrogant now? At this time, Sky Sword saw that Night Sorrow was still paying attention to the other people's battle while facing him and Tian Qing. He immediately felt insulted. Immediately, he used his ultimate skill. Immortal Flying Frost Sword. When the celestial immortal flying frost sword was slashed out, the void immediately froze. Immediately, countless frost-like sword energies shot towards Night Sorrow. There were more than 100 million of these flying frost formed by sword chi. Even the others in the battle were affected by it. What a powerful unique skill. However, you are mostly relying on the supreme divine artifact. There's nothing to fear. Inferno Devil Subduing Spear. Facing Sky Sword's immortal Flying Frost Sword, Night Sorrow immediately used Inferno Exorcism. A vast sea of fire immediately appeared in the void. After the sea of fire appeared, it quickly engulfed the Flying Frost. The Sky Sword's attack was completely annihilated. Inferno Demon subduing. Very strong, but not enough. After Night Sorrow easily blocked his attack, Sky Sword immediately unleashed another attack. Non-phase Heavenly Sword Technique. When Sky Sword unleashed this attack, Tianqing, who had not moved all this while, had a sinister look on his face. Suddenly vanishing into the void, he stabbed a sharp sword towards Night Sorrow, heading straight for his Divine Sea position. He was preparing to slit the throat with one sword while Night Sorrow was concentrating on resisting Sky Sword. Want to sneak attack me? Just based on you. I'll finish you off first, then I'll fight with Sky Sword. Tianqing's sneak attack completely had nowhere to hide in the eyes of the Night Sorrow, who activated the Mirage Dragon Eye. Discovering that Tianqing launched a sneak attack on him, Night Sorrow immediately ignored Sky Sword's attack and displayed the Yang Clan Heaven-Rending Art at him. What guts! To dare ignore my non-phase Heavenly Sword technique? Go to hell. Seeing Night Sorrow ignore his attack and attack toward Tianqing, Sky Sword was simply about to explode in anger. But just as he was about to attack Night Sorrow suddenly fired out a Divine Essence Trapping Array at him and threw out a Merit Jade Talisman at him. The Divine Essence Trapping Array could not trap Sky Sword. The Merit Jade Talisman could not cause a fatal blow to him either. But under the combination of these two moves, it directly resolved Sky Sword's attack. Not good. Why is this move so powerful? If I take it head-on, I'll die without a doubt. Facing Night Sorrow's Yang Clan Heaven-Rending Art, Tianqing, who was originally preparing to sneak attack him, was immediately frightened out of his wits. Stopping his figure, he took out several divine talismans and directly smashed them out. It's no use. Facing the many divine talismans that Tianqing smashed out, Night Sorrow chose to directly use speed to break through. Before these divine talismans exploded, he passed through their sealed area and suddenly slammed the golden heavenly halberd onto Tianqing's body. Being bombarded by the supreme divine artifact, golden heavenly halberd, Tianqing's body immediately exploded. He did not even have the chance to crush his identity token and was directly one-shot. At the same time, 10 points were added to Night Sorrow's identity token. Very clearly, this was the points that came from Tianqing. Furthermore, he was directly killed under the circumstances where he did not even hunt a single fierce beast. Therefore, it was only worth 10 points. Bastard! Killing Tianqing in front of me, I'm going to make your body into a puppet and seal your divine soul into a maggot. Seeing Tianqing being killed in front of his own eyes, Sky Sword's face was completely lost. Immediately igniting his bloodline power, he raised his strength to the strongest state. He used his strongest move. Heaven Sword Unity. Combining himself with the supreme divine artifact, Skyfrost Sword, and blasted towards Night Sorrow. Fine Sword Art. Sky Sword's move was clearly much stronger than myriad sword sets. Night Sorrow estimated that his combat power could already rank in the top 500 of this final competition. Using the Sea Serpent's Eye to observe this move, Night Sorrow pondered for a moment, and immediately displayed the Trestrimsa Heaven Combat Mystic Art, and raised his fighting intent to the highest. Displaying the Man and Spear Unity deduced from Myriad Sword Sect's Great Immortal Sword Art. Boom! When Night Sorrow's Man and Spear Unity and Sky Sword's Man and Sword Unity clashed together, the surrounding void shattered like glass, shattering for 100,000 miles. The other cultivators in battle all stopped fighting and looked over. At this time, less than 100 breaths of time had passed since the start of the battle, and there were no casualties on either side. Night Sorrow, how are you? After Night Sorrow and Sky Sword clashed, the void turned completely dark. Wu Lingfei called out worriedly. The battle was very short, and at this time, she was not injured, but not seeing Night Sorrow appear, her heart ached with worry. In fact, it was not only Wu Lingfei who was worried, the others in the Heavenly Immortal Realm and Heavenly Immortal Realm were also worried. Without a doubt, the outcome of Night Sorrow and Sky Sword's battle would determine which side the balance of this competition was tilted towards. Relatively speaking, their battle was not that important. Don't worry, Sister Fei, I'm fine. The one who's not fine is him. After the void fell silent, Night Sorrow's voice suddenly sounded. Hearing this voice, Wu Lingfei's eyes turned red, and she said, "You really don't disappoint. Sky Sword, he couldn't have been killed, right?" After Night Sorrow spoke, the people in Heavenly Immortal Realm could not remain calm, and they unconsciously gathered together. Clan M. Chapter 2958. Without a doubt, Sky Sword was their absolute leader and their backbone to the Celestial Immortals' territory. Now that they realized that Sky Sword was likely to be defeated, many of the Celestial Immortals' territory cultivators gathered together. One of the cultivators called Tian Xing shouted, "Brother Sky Sword, how are you? Are you hurt?" However, what awaited him was a vast silence. The void gradually calmed down, but Sky Sword did not respond. No need to shout, he has already turned into the essence of the laws. From now on, Sky Sword no longer exists in this world. At this time, Night Sorrow, who had slightly recovered, took out the Skyfrost sword he got from Sky Sword from his spatial artifact and handed it to Myriad Sword Sect. "Brother Wan, this Skyfrost sword is very high quality this time. Polish it well, you should be able to use it." Hee. Since it's in the hands of Myriad Sword Sect, it's no longer called Skyfrost sword. Myriad Sword Sect took the Skyfrost sword from Night Sorrow's hands and injected his divine power into it. After controlling it, he immediately polished its appearance. Then, he said, "From now on, it's called Immortal Slaying Sword." After that, Myriad Sword Sect looked at the Celestial Immortals territory cultivators and sneered, "Do you understand what I mean? Retreat." Currently, the strongest cultivators in the Celestial Immortals territory, Sky Sword and Sky Crystal, were both killed by Night Sorrow. How could the Celestial Immortals territory cultivators have the will to continue fighting? Seeing that Myriad Sword Sect was about to attack, they immediately used their flying sword techniques and fled into the distance. Coming and going as you please, how can there be such a good thing in this world? Seeing the Celestial Immortals territory cultivators fleeing, how could Myriad Sword Sect do anything? He took the lead and chased after them with his sword. However, the Celestial Immortals territory cultivators were clearly in a complete panic. Facing Myriad Sword Sect, who was chasing after them alone, they did not fight back and just kept running. In the end, Myriad Sword Sect killed 3 people in a row. As for the rest of the Celestial Immortals territory, they successfully escaped into the grassland where the dire wolf was. Myriad Sword Sect and the rest of the Celestial Immortals territory were still fearful of this grassland, so they did not chase after them. He returned to the place where the battle had just taken place and cleaned up the traces of the battle. Then, he continued to recover from his injuries within the concealment array. Although the battle did not last long, the Celestial Realm was at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. Other than Night Sorrow's side, the rest of the Celestial Realm did not have much of an advantage. Although no one died, 3 or 4 of them were injured to a certain extent. As for Night Sorrow, he had only expended a little more energy. "I think we have too few people. If they encountered a stronger territory, they would definitely not be able to hold on. In the near future, I'm preparing to absorb the Sovereign's laws and essence to break through to the Ruler Realm as soon as possible. Once I reach the Sovereign Realm, my strength will definitely increase greatly. That way, I won't have to fear the stronger territories." While everyone was recovering, Night Sorrow rearranged the concealment array and voiced his thoughts. "Alright. Celestial Immortals territories aren't considered to be very powerful territories. After encountering them, we were barely able to resist them. If we meet someone stronger, I'm afraid we can only run away." Wan Jianzong nodded in agreement and continued, "But Brother Yi, if you can advance to the Ruler Realm, then things will be completely different. I also think that the Celestial Realm's strength is a little weak. there should be a qualitative improvement. Otherwise, it would be impossible to achieve such an exciting result in the finals. Xiao Tianxian also agreed that Night Sorrow should immediately start cultivating. After all, Night Sorrow had the laws and essence left behind by the Horn Clan sovereign. As long as Night Sorrow was at ease, he could advance to the ruler realm. Others, including Wu Lingfei, also felt that Night Sorrow should immediately start cultivating. After receiving everyone's support, Night Sorrow opened up a stone room on the mountain peak. After setting up a simple array, he entered to cultivate. There was a concealment array outside, so he was not too worried. However, he was still very curious about how the Celestial Immortals Territory cultivators found them. Now that Brother Yi has started cultivating, this time will last at least 10 years or even 20 or 30 years. Let's just cultivate here in peace. Anyway, the battle in the small world will last for 100 years. We are not in a hurry. Wan Jianzong said his thoughts as Night Sorrow walked into the stone room. The others naturally did not object to this idea. Thus, they opened up their own stone rooms and entered a state of cultivation. When the Celestial Realm people entered a state of cultivation, Yu Ling outside was obviously angry. He scolded, "The Celestial Immortals territory is really disappointing. Lord, I will transfer the Silverhorn territory over and let them deal with the Celestial Realm." He was very unhappy that the Celestial Immortals territory did not have any effect on the Celestial Realm's territory. No need for that, let's observe for a while more. Feng Wuji shook his head indifferently and said, "These people from the Celestial Immortals territory did not come in vain. Now we are clear that the Celestial Realm's territory is completely dependent on this divine king called Night Sorrow. This is also a good thing. But if this Night Sorrow continues to cultivate, I'm afraid he will break through to the ruler realm soon. That will be even harder to deal with. Lord, why don't you let me send people?" Supreme Yuling asked in confusion. So what if he breaks through to the ruler realm? Feng Wuji said in disdain and continued, "Besides, if you continuously send people over, they will definitely be alerted. Also, the Dao World's territory that you mentioned is too far away. As for the Silverhorn territory, I don't think so." Lord, you mean that the Silverhorn territory, which is 2 to 3 times stronger than the Celestial Immortals territory, might not be their match? Supreme Yuling said in shock. In his opinion, the Silverhorn territory had more than 40 rulers, which was 4 times the number of the Celestial Realm's territory. Their strength was definitely above theirs. Just now, I observed the battle in the Silverhorn territory. There is no outstanding strength among them. The strongest person, Yin Jiao, is not even comparable to Tian Jian. With such strength, they can't face Night Sorrow. No matter how many come, he can kill as many as he wants. Feng Wuji said coldly. He was very disappointed that Supreme Yuling did not even notice such details. Yes. I understand. I will continue to look for other suitable territories. Supreme Yuling responded and observed the battle in other territories. There were a few other territories that he could contact. It was just that he did not show it just now. According to my observation, within 20 years, Night Sorrow will definitely break through to the ruler realm. Make the arrangements. After saying that, Feng Wuji went to watch the battle in the 9 mystical realm and no longer paid attention to this side. Okay. I will make the arrangements. Supreme Yuling promised, but she was secretly unhappy. Clan M. Chapter 2959. The territories that Supreme Yuling could contact were either allies of the Moon's Shadow Estate or subservient to the Moon's Shadow Estate. Now, he had to do things according to Feng Wuji's whims. However, he didn't dare to show his displeasure. After all, the other party was an Earth Supreme, one of the top 10 experts in the Eternal Supreme World. He was someone who could really cause a huge commotion in the Eternal Supreme World. After observing for a while, Supreme Yuling locked her gaze on the Mystic Ice Estate. The Mystic Ice Estate was ranked 132nd in the previous competition. In the current small world, they were ranked top 5 and had the ability to crush the Divine World Estate. Besides, they had just fought a battle and weren't far from the Divine World Estate. If they hurried, they would reach in about half a year. Thus, Supreme Yuling took out a stone and sent a voice transmission to the mystic immortal leading the mystic ice estate. She said, "Go straight east and there's a sword-shaped mountain peak with many stone pillars on it. Now, the people from the Divine World Estate are cultivating in the concealment array near the stone pillars. I want you to lead your men to extinguish them. I don't want to see the Divine World Estate advance to the top 1,000 in this competition. Supreme Yuling, don't worry. The Mystic Immortal won't let you down. I've paid attention to the Divine World Estate. There's only 10 of them. There's nothing to be afraid of." The Mystic Immortal heard Supreme Yuling's voice transmission and immediately replied confidently. Originally, he was like the other territories, scheming for Night Sorrow's Earth's supreme law and essence. Now that he received the voice transmission, the Mystic Immortal was very excited. Don't underestimate Night Sorrow. He's not easy to deal with. Seeing the Mystic Immortal's expression through the screen, Supreme Yuling frowned slightly. This Mystic Immortal obviously didn't care about Night Sorrow at all. At that moment, the other Supremes present basically saw through some of Supreme Yuling's arrangements. However, they didn't say much. Because whether it was Heaven Immortal Estate, Silverhorn Estate or Mystic Ice Estate, none of them had the ability to rank in the top 108. There weren't any Supremes present. Seeing Supreme Yuling's continuous actions, only the Dao World Estate's Supreme Dao Wui walked over. He sent a voice transmission. Why do we need to use the Mystic Ice Estate to deal with a mere Divine World Estate? The relationship between the Dao World and the Lunar Shadow Estate was not far. Many people weren't aware of this, but Dao Wui and Yuling were. That God King in the territory of the God Realm is quite powerful. He had just insta-killed Sky Sword. He was not easy to deal with. Now that I don't know his background, I can only send out the stronger territories. Supreme Yuling sighed. If we still can't deal with the Divine Realm, Limitless Earth Sovereign will be extremely displeased with me even though he won't say anything. Who would have thought that after so many years of decline, such a figure would suddenly appear in the firmament? Dao Wui murmured. Then, he looked in the direction of the God Realm's territory and said, "This Yishang, could he be the reincarnation of Longevity Sovereign? If so, we must nip it in the bud. I think the Limitless Earthly Sovereign's intention is to confirm that he is the reincarnation of the Supreme Longevity, nurture him, and then kill him to absorb his precepts and essence to break through the bottleneck." Supreme Yuling transmitted her voice to Dao Wui. Hearing this, Dao Wui frowned. If Night Sorrow is really the reincarnation of Supreme Longevity, we might be nurturing a tiger. What I'm saying is just a guess. Supreme Yuling said, and then looked towards Mystic Ice's territory with Dao Wui. Originally, Supreme Yuling wanted the Mystic Ice Estate to immediately search for the Divine Realm people. However, not long after the Mystic Ice Estate's battleship took off, the Mystic Ice Estate encountered its nemesis, the Chaos Estate. The Chaos Estate's results in the previous competition were almost the same as the Mystic Ice Estate's. Furthermore, they had formed a deep grudge. Now that they encountered each other, they immediately engaged in an intense battle. Damn it, why is there still a new problem? Seeing the Mystic Ice Estate and the Chaos Estate fighting, Supreme Yuling's face darkened. However, since both sides had engaged in a huge battle, it was impossible to pull them apart. He could only look for other suitable targets. However, after searching for half a day, he still couldn't find a suitable target. As a result, the matter of dealing with the Divine Realm was delayed. Night Sorrow, who didn't know that there were people in the outside world plotting against the Divine Realm, was completely immersed in cultivation. The laws and essence left behind by the Horn Race's Supreme were very gentle. He didn't encounter any difficulties in absorbing them. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. I thought that I would need to cultivate for another 50 to 60 years before I could advance. Now, it seems like I only need 10 years. Night Sorrow, who was immersed in cultivation, realized that this small world was clearly different from the divine realm. Cultivating here was much easier than cultivating in the divine realm. The improvement was huge. Just like that, 7 years passed. Night Sorrow hadn't reached the sovereign level yet, but Wu Lingfei had unexpectedly reached the sovereign level. This surprised the Myriad Sword sect and Xiao Tianxian. Because Wu Lingfei's accumulation in the Divine King level was much weaker than Night Sorrow's. Furthermore, she had just advanced to the upper Divine King level not long ago. In just 7 years, she had successfully advanced from half-step sovereign to sovereign. This was very surprising. After Wu Lingfei passed the sovereign tribulation, Xiao Tianxian immediately asked curiously, "Lingfei, how did you advance to sovereign in such a short time? This doesn't make sense. Maybe it's because I absorbed the laws and essence very quickly. In the genius base, the resources in our hands aren't considered good. But now, I can absorb the laws and essence of sovereigns uncontrollably, so I advanced quickly." Wu Lingfei thought for a moment and said. After advancing to sovereign, her temperament had changed a lot. After cultivating, she discovered that the speed at which she absorbed the laws and essence of sovereigns was thousands of times faster than ordinary cultivators. Thus, in these 7 years, she continuously absorbed the laws and essence that Night Sorrow had left behind for her. Then, she actually directly advanced to sovereign. This was a complete surprise. I wonder how Brother Ye's cultivation is going. After everyone celebrated Wu Lingfei, Murong Zizhen suddenly looked toward the stone room Night Sorrow was cultivating in. At this time, the stone room was covered in dust, but there was no movement. They had no idea how far Night Sorrow had cultivated. "Trash from the divine realm, hurry up and come out. I know that you are here." Just as everyone looked toward the stone room Night Sorrow was in, a series of curses came from outside the concealment array. The people who came were the people from the Mystic Ice territory who had just finished fighting in the Chaos territory and had recovered a few years ago. Genius remembered this site's address in 1 second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2960. They seem to be from Mystic Ice territory. How did they find us? The Deity World people in the concealment formation became nervous when they saw the people from Mystic Ice territory. After all, Mystic Ice territory was ranked in the top 200 in the last battle for Providence. Their overall strength was not something that the Deity World could fight against. I'm not sure. But it seems like they are not all gathered in our direction. They might have found out about us through the people from Sky Immortal territory. Wu Lingfei, who had just become a dominator, observed for a while and realized that the people from Mystic Ice territory did not know where they were. He immediately spoke up to remind everyone. Hearing this, Master Wan Jian observed for a while and realized that it was true. He said, "They really did not find us. Let's wait and see how they deal with it." After Master Wan Jian said that, the Deity World people stopped talking and observed the people from Mystic Ice territory. Mystic Ice territory had only 20 people left after the formation with Chaos territory. Their overall strength had decreased by a lot. But to the Deity World people, they were still a giant. Although the people from Mystic Ice territory and Sky Immortal territory were about the same, their individual strength was obviously 2 levels higher. There were 12 peak dominator cultivators, which was much stronger than the Deity World people. There is no reaction. Leader Xian Xian, what should we do? Could it be that the source of the information is wrong? The people from Mystic Ice territory could not see through the concealment formation. Xian Ming, the deputy leader, looked at Xian Xian in confusion. No. My information came from a lord who can't be wrong. His information can't be wrong. Xian Xian said coldly and pointed at a location. They must be hiding there. Take out your secret treasures and attack that place. On the way here, Mystic Ice territory had communicated with Supreme Yu Ling and confirmed the location of the people from the Deity World. Yes. Leader. Hearing this, Xian Ming immediately ordered the others, attack that direction. Yes. After receiving the order, the cultivators from Mystic Ice territory took out all kinds of secret treasures and weapons and attacked the place where the people from the deity world were. In an instant, the sky was filled with light, and the entire mountain shook. From the looks of it, the people from the profound ice territory have indeed discovered us. Everyone, get ready for battle. After the Mystic Ice territory's members attacked, Xiao Tianxian took out his divine equipment and said to the others, Night Sorrow is at the critical moment of breaking through to the Dominator rank. We have to buy him as much time as possible. Good. All of us will do our best. Master Wan Jian replied and pulled out his immortal slaying sword, preparing for battle. It was the same for the other people in the heavenly realm. As for the concealment formation that Night Sorrow had set up, it would soon be broken by force under the bombardment of everyone. The people from the divine realm also appeared in front of the people from the Xianbing territory. Ha! Sure enough, it's here. You guys can really keep your composure. Xianming, the vice leader of the Xian immortal territory, laughed when he saw the people from the divine world. Meanwhile, Xianbing frowned and shouted, Where's that fellow, Yichang? The people in front of him were all sovereigns, and they were different from what sovereign Yu Ling had described. He was certain that Night Sorrow wasn't among them. What does that have to do with you? Where is Night Sorrow? You are the Xian immortal from the Xianbing territory, right? Let me see what you're capable of. Do you dare to fight with me? After the Xian immortal spoke, Master Wan Jian stepped forward with his immortal slaying sword and challenged the Xian immortal. This was to buy time for Night Sorrow. You think you can challenge me, the Xian immortal? Xianming, go and kill him. Be careful of his supreme divine artifact. The Xian immortal with his hands behind his back did not move. Instead, he ordered Xianming to attack. Yes. Xian immortal leader. Xianming replied and walked towards Master Wan Jian with an ice sword in his hand. He said disdainfully, Trash cultivator from a trash territory, don't say that we from the Xianbing territory are bullying you. I'll give you 3 moves. Go ahead. 3 moves. I'm afraid you won't have the chance to attack. Master Wan Jian snorted disdainfully. He did not know Xianming's strength, and his opponent did not know his strength either. They were fighting by chance. Moreover, both of them were complete sovereigns. Both of them had a chance of winning. With a roar, Master Wan Jian swung his sword to test Xianming's strength. The sword did not seem to have any skills, but it was extremely fast. It had the momentum of the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. You don't even use your ultimate skill. Are you looking down on me? Seeing that Master Wan Jian did not use his ultimate skill, Xianming said coldly. He then used his ice sword to release a sword chi that collided with Master Wan Jian's attack. Master Wan Jian's immortal slaying sword was a supreme divine artifact after all. He did not dare to use his ice sword to block the attack. Boom! Xianming's sword chi was broken by Master Wan Jian's attack. This supreme divine artifact is very sharp. However, his strength is not as strong as Xianming. What an interesting battle. While Xianbing was observing the battle, she used her spiritual energy to scan her surroundings. Soon, she found Night Sorrow's location. After all, Night Sorrow did not set up any special array when he entered the stone chamber. When she found Night Sorrow's location, Xianbing immediately calmed down. In her opinion, the people from the realm of gods were nothing to be afraid of. Even if Night Sorrow was included, they were not a threat. She began to watch the battle patiently. She thought to herself, since you don't want to come out, I will let you have a taste of how it feels to kill your companions one by one. Xianbing was not in a hurry to attack. In Xianbing's opinion, the battle with the realm of chaos in the past was a real battle. This was a completely one-sided slaughter. Since it was a slaughter, it was the same as a cat playing with a mouse. She just wanted to entertain herself. The others from Xianbing's territory were the same. They did not take the cultivators from the realm of gods seriously. At this time, the battle between Master Wan Jian and Xian Ming had lasted for more than 10 breaths. The 3 moves that Xian Ming allowed had ended long ago. When Xian Ming allowed Master Wan Jian to attack, Master Wan Jian did not use his ultimate skill. He only used ordinary attacks and did not take advantage of Xian Ming at all. After the 3 moves, Master Wan Jian unleashed his ultimate skills and used his supreme divine artifact, the immortal slaying sword, to suppress Xian Ming. Ha, Xian Ming, you are suppressed by a cultivator from a trash territory. Isn't this a little embarrassing? Xian Tai, the other vice-captain of Xian Bing's territory, mocked Xian Ming when he saw that Xian Ming was suppressed. When Xian Ming heard Xian Tai's mocking, he snorted coldly and said, "What do you know? I am just teasing him." After Xian Ming shouted those words, the ice sword in his hand immediately exploded with powerful ripples. At the same time, he started to burn his bloodline power and raised his strength to the highest level. He started to take the battle seriously. Genius 1 second. Remember this address. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2961. What a powerful divine domain. When Xian Ming completely opened up his divine domain, Myriad Sword Sect immediately felt the pressure. After Xian Ming got serious, his aura was completely different. He seemed to be suppressing Myriad Sword Sect. However, Myriad Sword Sect was not afraid. He also burned his bloodline power to increase his strength. Then, he used his strongest technique. Great Deity Sword Technique. He suddenly attacked Xian Ming. Humph. Great Deity Sword Technique? What a big mouth. Let's see what you're made of. Go to hell. Facing Myriad Sword Sect's Great Deity Sword Technique, Xian Ming's face was full of contempt. He also used his strongest technique. Xian Ming's sword. Although Xian Ming did not combine with the ice sword in his hand, he poured all of his divine origin energy into it. Then, he attacked Myriad Sword Sect, who had turned into a giant sword. You're the one who should die. In the face of Xian Ming's ice sword, the Myriad Sword Sect did not hesitate at all. Boom! After the 2 of them collided in the void, Xian Ming's ice sword was immediately shattered. However, Myriad Sword Sect was also pushed back. Myriad Sword Sect, who had fallen to the ground, was severely injured and could no longer fight. Bastard! My Ice Soul Sword. Although he defeated Myriad Sword Sect, his Ice Soul Sword was destroyed. This made Xian Ming completely furious. Immediately, he attacked the Master of 10,000 Swords, intending to kill him. How dare you! How could Shao Tianxian continue watching when he saw the Xianming dynasty's 10,000 Swords Sect unleash their killer move? Not only did he block the attack with a single blow, but he also helped the Master of the 10,000 Swords back. How dare you interfere in a battle between 2 people? You people from the heavenly realm are really shameless. Xian Xian said disdainfully when he saw Shao Tianxian saving Myriad Sword Sect. It's a battle between 2 people. It's not a battle to the death. Why can't I interfere? Shao Tianxian replied calmly. Before the battle, they did not agree to a battle to the death. What he did was not against the rules. Hee. If that's the case, we won't talk nonsense with you. Kill them. Kill all the cultivators from the heavenly realm. The Xian Immortal ordered coldly when he heard Shao Tianquan's words. He himself looked in Yishang's direction. He shouted, "You coward! Are you still not going to come out?" However, Night Sorrow did not respond. What should we do? Night Sorrow hasn't broken through yet. We have no chance of winning against a Xian Immortal territory. Seeing that the Mystic Ice Territory's people were about to attack, Yuan Fengxue immediately frowned and transmitted a message to everyone. What else can we do? Stall for time until Night Sorrow becomes a sovereign. Now, we can only put our hopes on him. Tianxian said Xian Ming. Under these circumstances, he couldn't just stand by and watch as Night Sorrow led the God Realm's forces to escape. Ming, let's to the end. Deity battle. When Murong Zhenlu and the others heard Xiao Tianquan's words, they were ready to fight. The Heavenly Realm's cultivators were ready to fight to the death. It was the same as when they fought in the Blood Star. Hee hee. Trash territory, you're quite united. You're about to die and you're still talking nonsense. If I were you, I would have run. Xian Tai, the vice leader of the Xian Bing territory, shouted in disdain when he saw how determined the Heavenly Realm's cultivators were. At the same time, Xiao Tianxian kept the heavily injured Wan Jianzong into his space grotto heaven and let him consume some pills to recover. He then ignited his bloodline power and raised his strength to the maximum. He was ready to fight to the death. But at this moment, Wu Lingfei suddenly stepped forward. She looked at the Xian Bing territory's Xian Xian and said, Xian Xian, I want to challenge you. Do you dare to accept? You want to challenge me with just you? Are you worthy? Xian Xian looked at Wu Lingfei with disdain and said, trash like you is not even a match for me. You're not even worthy to stall for time. Whether I'm worthy or not, we'll know once we try. Wu Lingfei looked at Xian Xian fearlessly. The Heavenly Realm's cultivators started to persuade her. In their eyes, Wu Lingfei was courting death by challenging Xian Xian. Don't worry, everyone. I have a way to hold on for a while. At the very least, I can last longer than everyone else. After the Heavenly Realm's cultivators tried to persuade her, Wu Lingfei firmly transmitted her voice to them. That won't do. We can't let you shoulder this alone. Xiao Tianxian immediately disagreed. At this time, Xian Xian's interest was piqued and he said, it's interesting to see your desperate faces. You want to fight with me? I'll accept. However, since we're going to fight to the death, do you dare to accept? Isn't it just a fight to the death? What's there to be afraid of? I'll accept. Wu Lingfei flew to the empty space and looked at Xian Xian fearlessly. In fact, with her current strength, fighting Xian Xian was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. However, Wu Lingfei hoped to buy some time for Night Sorrow as much as possible. Since you've agreed, I'll satisfy you. It's just a matter of a breath. It won't affect the overall situation. Xian Xian, who had ordered the Profound Ice Realm's cultivators to attack, looked at them and smiled. In his opinion, he only needed a breath to deal with Wu Lingfei. Moreover, he, who was somewhat perverted, enjoyed seeing the despair in the eyes of the Heavenly Realm's cultivators. Originally, he only needed one move to deal with Wu Lingfei, so he wasn't in a hurry to attack. He looked at Wu Lingfei and said, you should attack first. If I attack first, you won't have a chance to attack. All right. Wu Lingfei, who was floating in the air, responded and ignited her phoenix bloodline. This bloodline was inherited from Ancestor Phoenix, but it wasn't necessarily weaker than Ancestor Phoenix's. When Wu Lingfei raised her strength to the peak, she would suddenly use her strongest technique against the Xian Immortal. Ice Phoenix Sky Howl. She transformed into the form of an ice phoenix and soared into the sky to attack the Xian Immortal. Hee hee, you have pretty good ice attribute potential. Unfortunately, you were born in the wrong place. Reincarnate into my Profound Ice Realm. I, Xian Xian, will provide you with cultivation resources. Xian Immortal was surprised to see Wu Ling concubine charging at him with a trail of icy light. Originally, he only saw that Wu Lingfei belonged to the Phoenix clan, but he didn't expect her to be an ice phoenix. Her attribute was very compatible with the Profound Ice Realm. However, Xian Xian didn't hold back at all. He directly blasted out an incomparably powerful attack. Although he didn't use a divine artifact, his strength wasn't something that Wu Lingfei could compare to. He raised his hand and shot out a beam of light that directly pierced through the ice phoenix's chest. Wu Lingfei's attack also came to an abrupt end. Wu Lingfei. Although they already knew that Wu Lingfei wasn't a match for Xian Xian, seeing her chest being pierced through still caused them to be shocked. Yuan Fengxue and the other cultivators of the Heavenly Realm all cried out with heartache. Genius 1 second. Remember this site. Human mobile version website. Chapter 2962. As the crowd cried out in grief, Xiao Tianxian bitterly glanced at Yi Shang's location. At this moment, Yi Shang was still cultivating and showed no signs of waking up. This made him very anxious. After Wu Lingfei's death, Xianbing territory would launch their final attack. At that time, the people from the realm of gods would be killed in an instant. After all, Xianxian's casual attack just now was so powerful that they could not withstand it at all. If everyone from Xianbing territory attacked together, the people from the realm of gods would not be able to hold on for more than 20 breaths. These 20 breaths were like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It would not play a decisive role in their cultivation. I'll leave a trace of your soul for you to be reincarnated. Remember, you must be reincarnated into Xianbing territory. Otherwise, I'll kill you every time I see you. At this moment, the Xian immortal had a cold smile on his face as he spoke sinisterly. Everyone from Xianbing territory laughed when they heard this. Xian Ming, who had recovered from his injuries, laughed sinisterly. Hee, leader. I think this woman is quite pretty. If she is reincarnated into Xianbing territory, you can keep her as a cultivation vessel. Hee, it's not impossible. Hearing this, Xian smiled at Wu Lingfei's remnant soul and said, hurry up and reincarnate. Bang! Wu Lingfei's soul did not reincarnate after hearing this. Instead, she chose to self-destruct on the spot. Why bother? In your next life, be with the right man. Xian smiled and shouted at Night Sorrow, coward, I've killed your woman. You still don't dare to come out. At this time, the people from the realm of gods were all sad when they saw Wu Lingfei's soul exploding. However, they were no match for the people from Xianbing territory. If they stopped, they would not be able to buy much time. Therefore, everyone, including Xiao Tianxian, was holding back. They were waiting for the cultivators from Xianbing territory to make their move. Ha. It's not just the one inside who's a coward, all of you trash are the same. Kill them. Xian roared. Night Sorrow and the people from the realm of gods did not move. He immediately ordered the people from Xianbing territory to attack. Screech. At this moment, a loud and clear phoenix cry suddenly rang out in the originally silent sky. Wu Lingfei was reborn at the place where she had fallen. After about 20 breaths, he had completely recovered, and his strength had increased. After recovering, Wu Lingfei looked at where Night Sorrow was cultivating and thought, you protect the world. As for me, I will still protect you like before. After that, he turned to look at the Xian immortal and said, our battle isn't over yet. Let's continue. Nirvana rebirth? Good. This time, I'll let you die even more thoroughly. Xian's face immediately darkened when he saw that Wu Lingfei was completely unharmed. With a loud bang, he launched an attack that was exactly the same as before. Phoenix Cry 9 Heavens. This time, Wu Lingfei didn't dodge the same attack. Instead, she transformed into an ice phoenix and used Phoenix Cry in the 9th heaven. He used the Tong Tian's cry to resolve this attack. Wu Lingfei has been reborn and blocked the Xian immortal's attack. Am I dreaming? Yuan Fengxue, whose tears had already burst out, shouted in disbelief when he saw that Wu Lingfei had been reborn and had become even stronger. You didn't see wrong. She has indeed been reborn. This should be the bloodline talent of the Phoenix clan. However, every phoenix has a limited chance of being reborn. It's impossible for her to be reborn endlessly. Xiao Tianxian explained. He knew some things about the Phoenix clan, but he didn't know much. I see. Then Wu Lingfei is still in danger of dying. Hearing Xiao Tianquan's explanation, Yuan Fengxue, who was in the sky, became nervous again. Moreover, not long after, something that worried her happened again. After Wu Lingfei blocked the Xian immortal's attack, the Xian immortal was completely enraged. He directly used his ultimate technique on her. After Wu Lingfei's strength increased, the gap between the two was still very large. The ultimate technique used by the Xian immortal was not something that Wu Lingfei could contend with in terms of strength or speed. She was killed again without any suspense. After killing Wu Lingfei again, the Xian immortal looked at the sky and raised his eyebrows. Come. Continue to be reborn. Let's see how many times you can be reborn. Screech. Not long after the Xian immortal said that, a phoenix rang out. The cry of a phoenix came from the void again, and concubine Wu Ling was reborn. After being reborn, she looked at where Night Sorrow was and fought with the Xian immortal again. This time, Wu Lingfei took on the Xian immortal's ultimate technique, but the Xian immortal used a divine weapon to kill her again. Wu Lingfei. Seeing Wu Lingfei being killed again and again, Yuan Fengxue, the only female cultivator in the heavenly realm, choked with sobs. She didn't know what kind of power gave Wu Lingfei the courage to die again and again. Her heart ached so much that she couldn't control herself. She looked at where Night Sorrow was and said, "Why haven't you come out yet? Why haven't you come out yet? Can't you see that Wu Lingfei is being killed again and again?" The others in the heavenly realm were also very sad to see Wu Lingfei being killed again and again. But even if they attacked, the result wouldn't be better, so they could only stay silent. Screech. Night Sorrow still didn't come out, but Wu Lingfei was reborn again. After being reborn, Wu Lingfei looked at where Night Sorrow was and murmured, "After thousands of years of companionship, today is the end. I hope you will remember me." A tear fell from Wu Lingfei's eye as she murmured. She didn't wipe it, but flew into the sky again and stood in front of the Xian immortal. "Let's go again." And this time, she had used up all of her chances of being reborn. If she was killed again, there would be no hope of recovery. You are a woman who cares about relationships. However, in the eyes of a Xian immortal like me, your so-called decisiveness is nothing but dog shit. Die again. The Xian immortal roared in disdain and continued to use his divine weapon to fight Wu Lingfei. Wu Lingfei, who had been reborn again and again, was now a middle-level dominator, but she was still a bit weaker than the Xian immortal. And the divine weapon of the Xian immortal was a supreme divine weapon. Facing his continuous attacks, she was soon at a disadvantage again. "Brother Shao, what should we do? What should we do? We can't watch Wu Lingfei be killed." Yuan Fengxue, who heard Wu Lingfei's murmurs, said with tears in her eyes. She couldn't bear to see Wu Lingfei being killed one after another. She couldn't bear to see her completely die. "There's no other way. We can only fight. Everyone, prepare to detonate your divine weapons, delay for as long as possible." After thinking for a while, Shao Tianxian transmitted his voice to the people in the heavenly realm. At this time, the Xian immortal who was suppressing Wu Lingfei once again used a sure-kill attack on her. Mystic Ice Rain Sword. Genius remembered this address in 1 second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2963. Mystic Ice Rain Sword. This was one of Xian Xian's 3 killing moves. Usually, he would only use it when he was fighting an opponent of equal strength. Now that he was facing Wu Lingfei, he had a strange feeling that if he didn't use this move, he wouldn't be able to kill her. Although Wu Lingfei was only a middle-level dominator, her battle strength was already much stronger than an upper-level dominator. She posed a threat to Xian Xian. Of course, this was exchanged for by her several Nirvana rebirth. But from now on, she couldn't use Nirvana rebirth anymore. If she died, she would really die. Phoenix Dance of the 9 Heavens. When Xian Xian used Mystic Ice Rain Sword, everyone in Divine Realm moved. They all helped Wu Lingfei block this move. After Shao Tianxian and the others attacked, Wu Lingfei let out a battle cry and used her strongest move, Phoenix Dance of the 9 Heavens. She who was originally an ice phoenix immediately turned into a golden heavenly phoenix. Everyone in Divine Realm attacked together, and with Wu Lingfei's strongest move, they blocked Xian Xian's attack. "All of you are trash. None of you can fight. Don't move. Against them, Xian alone is enough." At this time, Xian Xian laughed instead of being angry. He stopped the others who wanted to attack and fought with the Divine Realm army alone. Those from the Divine World immediately unleashed their combined attacks. But Night Sorrow and Myriad Sword Sect weren't here, so their battle strength was limited. Soon, they were suppressed by Xian Xian alone. A Xian Xian who was fully unleashed was much stronger than what the Divine Realm army had imagined. Ha ha ha. Trash, all of you are trash. Even if all of you from the Heavenly Realm were to join forces, you still wouldn't be a match for me. What face do you have left to live in this world? Go to hell. After suppressing the Divine Realm army, Xian Xian laughed without restraint. His laughter was extremely arrogant. Ha ha ha. Leader is mighty, Divine Realm will be destroyed today. Xian Ming and the others all shouted excitedly. To them, this was a completely one-sided suppression, so they didn't feel any psychological burden. The depression from the battle with Chaos Territory was also vented. Ha ha ha. I'm curious, why don't you all crush your identity plates? There are so many opportunities. Xian Xian attacked continuously, Divine Realm army was in danger. Wu Lingfei and Murong Jinlu were both heavily injured, and were almost killed a few times. But they didn't take out their identity plates, which made Xian Xian surprised. Our territory in the Divine Realm will definitely enter the top 1,000 in this year's Battle of Providence. We will never give up. Xiao Tianxian, who had self-detonated his half-step Supreme Stage God artifact, and Divine Realm army's level. The people from the other God Realm territories were the same. They would rather sacrifice themselves to buy time for Yishang than crush their identity plates to escape. As far as they were concerned, so long as Night Sorrow could advance to become a sovereign, then there was hope for their territory in the God Realm. Xian Xian's Verizas. Unfortunately, it's all in vain. Xian Xian, Xian Xian, S swords Xian, TSSXT S's gods XTXT to XS. Because the Xian immortal suddenly disappeared, no one in the divine world could find him. It was as if he had silently gone to a different world, making it impossible for anyone to detect his aura. However, the strange thing was that everyone in the divine world could clearly feel the killing intent. Everyone looked at each other, their hearts in their throats. Wu Lingfei looked in the direction of Night Sorrow. She had a premonition that the Xian immortal's target would be her. She wanted to see Night Sorrow one last time. Looks like you've understood something. Go to hell. Seeing that Wu Lingfei was looking at Night Sorrow, the Xian immortal hidden in the void suddenly roared and slashed at Wu Lingfei's chest. Just then, Wu Lingfei's eyes widened. This was not because of fear, but because she saw the stone room Night Sorrow was in suddenly explode. A furious Night Sorrow suddenly flew out from the ground. Reincarnation Spear. The moment Night Sorrow flew out from the ground, a dense tribulation cloud immediately rose in the sky. However, he did not care about this and immediately used his golden heavenly halberd to strike the Xian immortal with the reincarnation spear. At this moment, if the Xian immortal continued to attack Wu Lingfei, he would definitely be pierced by Night Sorrow's golden heavenly halberd. How could he be willing to exchange his life for Wu Lingfei's? He kept his sword and disappeared into the void. After the Xian immortal disappeared, Night Sorrow immediately protected the exhausted Wu Lingfei and said, "Come to my space paradise to heal. In the future, it will be my turn to protect you." You heard it. Hearing this, Wu Lingfei's eyes were immediately covered with tears. I heard it. I will remember it in my heart and will never forget it. Yishang said gently. Then he took Wu Lingfei back into his space grotto heaven. At this moment, Wu Lingfei's heart ached so much that he wanted to cry. At this moment, he decided to break all the barriers between the two of them. After that, Night Sorrow looked at Xiao Tianxian and the rest and said, "Everyone, you have worked hard. You have done enough. Leave the rest to me. I alone am enough to deal with the Xian Bing territory. I alone am enough." This was what the Xian immortal had said before. Now, Night Sorrow had returned it to him word for word. Arrogant. You, a ruler who has not undergone tribulation, want to challenge my Xian Bing territory with your own strength. Hearing Night Sorrow return his words to him word for word, the Xian immortal immediately flew into a rage. He roared, "You should first think about how to pass the ruler tribulation with my ability. Do you dare to interfere with my ruler tribulation?" Facing the Xian immortal, Yishang spoke in a dignified manner and flew into the air. At this moment, the lightning tribulation was extremely dense. Night Sorrow flew into the sky and was immediately attacked by the tribulation cloud. He calmly waited for the lightning tribulation body to form. The Xian immortal had just caught up when he was attacked by the same lightning. He could not resist this level of lightning. Soon, he flew far away. He ordered, "This person's ruler tribulation is almost at the level of a supreme lightning tribulation. It is impossible to get close to him. Everyone, attack together. We cannot let him pass the tribulation successfully." At this moment, the Xian immortal was very regretful that he had delayed for so long. If he had known that Night Sorrow was so strong, he would have attacked long ago. After finding the people of the heavenly realm, the Xian immortal had been thinking that victory was in his hands. However, when Night Sorrow's tribulation appeared, he immediately felt a sense of foreboding. He immediately regretted that he had let the tiger return to the mountain. What? He is so strong. The other cultivators of the Xian Bing territory did not get close to the tribulation cloud and were not attacked. Therefore, they did not realize how terrifying the tribulation cloud was. He is more powerful than you think. Hearing this, the Xian immortal ordered coldly, "Immediately use secret treasures, divine weapons, and talismans to kill him. Don't be stingy with anything." Clan. Chapter 2964. Yes, leader. After receiving the order, the people of Dark Ice Estate immediately threw out their divine talismans and secret treasures. Beams of light were like blooming fireworks as they bombarded Yi Shan's location. However, before these attacks could get close to Night Sorrow, they were shattered by the lightning released by the tribulation cloud. At this time, Xian Ming said in surprise, "Leader, could it be that his body is stronger than our secret treasures and divine talismans?" "It should be so. His body is stronger than yours and mine. I wonder how strong he will be after he passes the sovereign tribulation." Xian Xian said bitterly. The more he spoke, the more he regretted not taking action earlier and allowing Night Sorrow to reach the sovereign realm. "I didn't expect that there would be another person after the supreme longevity in the realm of the gods. We even caught up with him." Xian Ming sighed. However, there were more than 20 sovereigns in Dark Ice Estate and he was not afraid. "Leader. He needs to pass the tribulation. Why don't we set up a formation around him? After all, it is better to be safe than sorry." Xian Tai, the other vice leader of Dark Ice Estate, said maliciously. Currently, they could not deal with Night Sorrow, who was hiding in the tribulation cloud. He felt that they could use this time to set up a formation. "Yes. Set up the formation. Let's make it difficult for him to escape." Xian Xian said and started to lead the people of Dark Ice Estate to set up the formation. "What can you do by setting up a formation in front of me?" Night Sorrow, who was floating in the tribulation cloud, looked at the people of Dark Ice Estate with the sea serpent's eye and smiled disdainfully. These people were setting up the formation in front of him and he could see every detail. After he passed the tribulation, it would be easy for him to break the formation. "Brother Yi, are you sure you can pass the tribulation cloud?" Jin Xian, who felt the power of the tribulation cloud, could not help but ask Night Sorrow. The tribulation cloud in front of them did not look like a sovereign tribulation. It looked like a supreme tribulation. The strong pressure made them feel as if they were facing the supreme wolf king in the grassland. "Don't worry, Brother Jin Xian. There shouldn't be any problems." Night Sorrow replied confidently. Through all these years of cultivation, he had completely absorbed the laws and essence of the Horned Sovereign and comprehended something that belonged to him. As long as he could overcome the lightning tribulation, he would be able to fight on par with ordinary Jizuan cultivators. If there's no problem with the tribulation, then I'm relieved. If you can survive such a terrifying tribulation, then these sovereigns will definitely be no match for you. Jin Xian said in a relaxed tone. Then he continued, this time, it was all thanks to Lady Ling concubine that we were able to hold on until you came out. You must treat me well in the future. You. Don't talk nonsense. Hearing this, Wu Lingfei immediately felt embarrassed. Ha! This is not Jin Xian's nonsense. We can all see your feelings for Night Sorrow. Furthermore, we also heard what you were mumbling at that time. At this time, Yuan Fengxue also joked with a smile. Concubine Ling, I will protect you from now on. I won't put you in danger. Everyone laughed at Wu Lingfei's teasing. At this time, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice. After hearing Yi Shang's words, Wu Lingfei first smiled before bursting into tears. After she calmed down, Murongguizhi, who had recovered from his injuries, said, it's settled then. In addition, I feel that if Night Sorrow can fight the Xian Bing territory alone, our Divine Realm territory's results will definitely be unbelievably good. This time, our Divine Realm territory will really be able to turn things around. Now that you say it, it seems to make sense. Hearing Murongguizhi's words, Yuan Fengshue's eyes lit up. Perhaps this time, not only will we be able to enter the top 1,000, we might even be able to enter the top 100. In other words, we will be able to obtain the top 3 in the small world. Top 3. I will do my best. After Yuan Fengxue finished speaking, Night Sorrow nodded. At this time, he had not succeeded in passing the tribulation, so he did not know how much his strength would increase. This was because after passing the tribulation, not only would he obtain the heavenly Tao's blessing, it was also very likely that he would have the ability to absorb the earthly sovereign's law and essence that Feng Wuji had injected into his body. If he could absorb those, he would have 100% confidence in fighting against earthly sovereigns. You have to be careful. If you have to bear everything alone, my heart will ache. After Yi Shang finished speaking, Wu Lingfei immediately said in a soft voice. Although in her heart, Night Sorrow was an undefeatable god of war who had never disappointed anyone, she was still very worried. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Night Sorrow said and continued, you guys recover well. I will recover and prepare to receive the lightning tribulation energy body. Alright. Then we won't disturb you anymore. Shao Tianxian and Night Sorrow said and then looked at the rest of the people in the realm of the gods. Night Sorrow's strength increasing is a great thing for the realm of the gods, but we can't rely on him for everything. Let's hurry up and increase our strength. Yes. We can't be the ones who drag him down forever. Everyone is the same as Night Sorrow, we are all part of the realm of the gods. At the very least, we need to have the ability to support him. Xue Changtian, who had not spoken for a long time, also nodded and said. After that, the rest of the people also expressed their opinions. They did not want to continue watching the show in the realm of the gods. While Night Sorrow was recovering, they also swallowed their own elixirs to recover. As for the injured one Jianzong, he felt a little strange because he felt a strange calling. However, he did not know where the calling came from and why it sounded in his mind. What is going on? Wan Jianzong was puzzled. Just as he was thinking about what was going on, after a period of condensation, the lightning tribulation energy figure in the void was completely formed. It turned into a human body that was the same size as Night Sorrow. Come. Defeat you, and I can become a true sovereign. Looking at the lightning tribulation energy figure, Night Sorrow roared with confidence. After entering the eternal supreme world, the speed of cultivation was many times faster than in the realm of the gods. However, to be able to welcome the sovereign tribulation in such a short time, Night Sorrow was still very excited. Master Wuji, this Night Sorrow of the realm of the gods is probably going to make a name for himself in the War of Providence. What should we do next? Supreme Yuling, who was watching everything from the outside, said with a bitter face. Xian Immortal and the others in the Mystic Ice realm had been showing off to Night Sorrow for successfully advancing to the Sovereign realm, and he was extremely unhappy. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 2965. What should we do? Upon hearing that, Feng Wuji appeared beside Supreme Yuling and sneered. If he can successfully transcend the tribulation and destroy the mystic ice estate, transfer the Tao world over immediately. Let the people of the Tao world fight with him. All right. That's the only way. Supreme Yuling nodded. At that moment, a trace of doubt arose in his heart, as he felt that Feng Wuji's attitude was a little strange. He could not figure out whether he wanted to nurture Night Sorrow and then destroy him to completely destroy the supreme longevity or if he had other plans. At that moment, Feng Wuji looked at Dao Wui, who was nearby. Does the Tao world's hidden Dao Jun have the strength to fight against a supreme? My lord, Dao Jun of the Tao world might be ranked in the top 10 of this year's battle for providence, but I'm not sure if he has the strength to fight against a supreme. Dao Wui answered respectfully. He did not dare hide anything from an earth supremacy like Feng Wuji. The Tao world is holding back and trying to rush into the top 10. Feng Wuji smiled casually and continued, however, if you want to enter the top 10, you have to destroy the Divine World Estate. My lord, do you mean that even the Tao World Estate is not confident of winning against the Divine World Estate? Upon hearing Feng Wuji's words, Dao Wui asked in disbelief, is Yi Shang really that formidable? If nothing goes wrong, as long as he advances to the ruler realm, he can challenge an ordinary supreme. Even if he doesn't have the supreme longevity, he'll be another supreme longevity. Feng Wuji said word by word as he looked at the screen. Upon hearing that, Supreme Yuling and Dao Wui exchanged glances, finding it unbelievable. Then, Supreme Yuling looked at Feng Wuji and asked, My lord, is what you said true? Are you doubting my judgment? Feng Wuji reprimanded in an unpleasant tone. This is a big deal. After Feng Wuji said that, Supreme Yuling immediately took a deep breath and said, the eternal supreme world cannot have another supreme longevity. We must kill him in this battle for providence. We can't let a tiger return to the mountain. You know what to do. Feng Wuji looked at Supreme Yuling and asked. Of course. Of course. Supreme Yuling immediately nodded. Tao World Supremacy, Dao Wui, also said, Don't worry, Your Excellency. One person is not considered strong at all. I still have confidence in the Tao World's territory. He shouldn't be able to leave this small world. Good. Then I'll wait and see. Feng Wuji said and didn't say anything else. Supreme Yuling and Dao Wui stood behind him and continued to watch the scenes in the lesser world. At this time, Night Sorrow's Thunder Tribulation had already formed a Thunder Tribulation energy body. This time, the Lightning Tribulation energy body that Night Sorrow was facing looked similar to the ones he had faced in the past. However, the energy fluctuations on his body made his heart tremble. Powerful. This Lightning Tribulation energy body was simply too powerful. It gave people the feeling that it could destroy the world. Very strong, but your strength is used to make me stronger. After the Lightning Tribulation energy body formed, Night Sorrow roared and fought with it with the golden heavenly halberd in his hand. At this time, more than 100 Supreme Supremacies were watching the scene of Night Sorrow's tribulation with Feng Wuji. Although they were the best among Supreme Supremacies, this was the first time they saw a ruler going through a Supreme Tribulation. After all, it was almost impossible to challenge someone of a higher level in the eternal Supreme world. Even if a ruler could challenge a Supreme, it would basically be a half-step Supreme. For example, Night Sorrow, who hadn't completely formed a ruler's body, could directly face such a powerful Lightning Tribulation energy body. This was completely beyond their imagination. This child can't be left alive. Yes, he can't be left alive. We can't watch as a second Supreme Longevity appears. When Night Sorrow and the Lightning Tribulation energy body completely fought and vaguely gained the upper hand. Some Supreme Supremacies present spoke one after another. Many of them were from territories that had made a move against Eternal Paragon or the territories of the God Realm. Naturally, they didn't want to see Night Sorrow grow stronger. That's why we have to kill him in this battle of providence. At this time, Feng Wuji continued, otherwise, with his strength, he will definitely be able to obtain enough providence for the Divine World territories. With the support of providence, he can hide in the Divine World territories and rely on the Forbidden Zones to grow. By then, it will be even more difficult to deal with him. After all, with the support of providence, if he recklessly enters other territories, he will be attacked by the Eternal Supreme World. Lord Earth Supreme, if he's lucky enough to get a ranking, we can also kill him on the spot. After Feng Wuji finished speaking, Supreme Yuling spoke up. She felt that if Knight Sorrow did well in this battle of providence, it would be best to kill him directly. After all, some of the territories present had already dealt with the supreme longevity. It wouldn't be a big deal to attack Yisheng again. It's not that we can't. But the key is who does it. Feng Wuji sneered. Killing someone in the battle of providence will consume a large amount of providence. They will also be attacked by the Eternal Supreme World. Who is willing to do it? This matter can be discussed at length. Supreme Yuling said with an awkward expression. She meant to let Feng Wuji choose someone to do it. After all, most people wouldn't be willing to do such a thing. At least, Yuling didn't want to do it personally. Then, Supreme Yuling changed the topic. This lightning tribulation energy clone doesn't seem to be a threat to him. Everyone who was originally focused on Feng Wuji looked and realized that it was indeed so. Knight Sorrow, who was in the void, was simply incomparably dauntless. Most people would use the method of exhausting the lightning tribulation energy clone when facing it, but Knight Sorrow faced it head-on. Moreover, he had a certain amount of initiative. Under Knight Sorrow's continuous head-on attacks, the lightning tribulation energy clone soon couldn't hold on and was forcefully destroyed. And after Knight Sorrow defeated the lightning tribulation energy clone, he completely received the Heavenly Tao's law of providence. He became a true overlord. Is this what it feels like to be a overlord? It's definitely 1,000 times stronger than the Divine King's realm. Knight Sorrow, who had become a overlord, didn't immediately try to absorb the earthly supreme's law of providence and essence. Instead, after feeling it for a while, he looked at the leader of the Mystic Immortal and said, I said that I alone am enough to deal with the Mystic Immortal. Let's fight now. Let's fight then. Do you think the Mystic Immortal territory is afraid of you alone? Hearing Knight Sorrow's roar, the Mystic Immortal said disdainfully and shouted, Open the array for me. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website, M. Chapter 2966. Yes, leader. Everyone from the Mystic Ice Estate heard the Xian Immortal's words and immediately activated the formation that they had set up. In an instant, Yishan felt a force that seemed to originate from the heavens and the earth begin to bind him. It suppressed his strength and made him feel like he was being choked. It was very uncomfortable. Ha! Let's see how you are going to be so arrogant this time. Let's kill our way in. After the formation was activated, the Xian Immortal roared and charged towards Knight Sorrow with his supreme artifact. He used his strongest skill, the Xian Immortal Ice Soul Sword. He merged with the void and completely disappeared in front of everyone. As for the other people from the Mystic Ice Estate, they also used their secret treasures and ultimate skills to attack Knight Sorrow. There were also some who directly threw out powerful divine talismans. At this moment, although Knight Sorrow was suppressed by the formation, his aura was still terrifying and gave them a feeling that he was invincible. Everyone from the Mystic Ice Estate felt that everything had turned around. At this moment, they were like the realm of the gods just now. They had suddenly become the weaker side. Therefore, when they started attacking, they used their strongest skills to kill Knight Sorrow in an instant. The formation is well set up. However, you guys set it up in front of me. How can I not break it? Facing the suppression of the Xian Immortal and the attacks of the Mystic Ice Estate, Knight Sorrow did not panic at all. He dodged and appeared in another void. He found the core of the formation and broke it easily. When the formation was broken by Knight Sorrow, the force that was restraining him disappeared. Feeling the powerful force returning, Night Sorrow opened the eye of the sea serpent and suddenly poured the golden heavenly halberd into the void. Boom! The Xian immortal who was hiding in the void and waiting for an opportunity to attack Night Sorrow was immediately pierced through. He appeared from the void. Good! Brother Yi, you are really brave. Seeing this scene, the myriad sword sect in the space grotto heaven could not help but cheer loudly. Xiao Tianxian said, Night Sorrow is facing a strong enemy. Let's keep quiet and not disturb him. All right then. Master Wang Jian smiled. At this moment, he was in a very good mood. He felt as if he was in the middle of spring and white snow. When he first met Night Sorrow, he did not take him seriously at all. But now, in his eyes, Night Sorrow was no different from a god. Everyone else in the god world was also in a good mood. When they were suppressed, they were like people who were suffocating in water. They might not be able to hold on any time. But in the end, he had to wait for Night Sorrow to advance. Furthermore, Night Sorrow did not disappoint them at all. Now, it was their turn to relax and watch the show. At this moment, the people in Xian Bing's territory were in a completely different mood. All of them attacked together, but Night Sorrow easily dodged them. The array formation was also broken. Moreover, the strongest Xian immortal among them was pierced through in a single strike. Although he didn't die, he was severely injured. This caused everyone in Xian Bing's territory to be shrouded in a layer of worry. Leader, what should we do? Xian Ming, who was supporting Xian Immortal in the void, frowned and asked. At this moment, Night Sorrow's combat strength was completely beyond his imagination. His strength had reached the level of a supreme being. Xian Ming could not even raise his heart to fight back. What else can we do? Run. According to my estimation, although he has just advanced to the level of a dominator, his strength is at least in the top 20 of this battle for Providence. We can't deal with such an enemy. We can only run away first and plan for the long term. The injured Xian Immortal said and ordered everyone in Xian Bing's territory to escape. Under his order, the people in Xian Bing's territory who were already prepared to escape immediately scattered like birds and beasts. They fled in all directions, trying to avoid Night Sorrow's pursuit. As for Night Sorrow, he immediately targeted the Xian Immortal and heavily injured him. You are very strong, but many people don't want to see the rise of the God World territory. What awaits you is a merciless attack. You won't live for more than a few days. Xian Immortal, who had been severely injured by Night Sorrow, had lost the ability to escape. At the same time, he took out his identity plate and was about to crush it to escape. But at this moment, Night Sorrow directly used the confinement divine weapon that he had obtained from Myriad Sword Sect. It temporarily interrupted Xian Immortal's movements and took his identity plate. I will definitely live longer than you. After taking Xian Immortal's identity plate, Night Sorrow directly attacked with his golden heavenly halberd. But at this moment, Xian Immortal directly chose to self-destruct. Before Night Sorrow's golden heavenly halberd could reach him, he chose to commit suicide. He destroyed all the laws and essence in his body. As for this degree of self-destruction, it did not cause any harm to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, the others seem to have escaped far away. What should we do next? Myriad Sword Sect immediately spoke up when they saw that Night Sorrow was completely crushing the people in Xian Bing's territory. Them? None of them can escape. Hearing Myriad Sword Sect's words, Night Sorrow smiled and used the Horn Clan's tracking technique. He used his aura to track Xian Ming. Soon, he caught up with him. This Xian Ming was also decisive. The moment he saw Night Sorrow, he directly crushed the identity plate in his hand and escaped death. After Xian Ming, Night Sorrow immediately started to track Xian Tai. It did not take long for him to catch up and successfully kill him. As for the other people in Xian Bing's territory, 7 of them were killed by Night Sorrow. The rest were quick and crushed their identity plates. At this point, in the last Battle of Providence, Xian Bing's territory, which was ranked in the top 150, was directly annihilated and ranked 7th from the bottom in this group. Their result was only better than the other 6 territories that had already been annihilated. They did not even enter the top 2,000, which could be said to be very miserable. Everyone, what do you think about this Night Sorrow that appeared in the realm of gods? When the dust of the battle between the realm of gods and Xian Bing's territory settled, the realm of gods result immediately rose to 2nd place. It was second only to the Dao world's territory that kept hunting dire wolves. At that moment, Supreme Yuling looked at the more than 100 supremes of the other territories and asked. In my opinion, we still have to nip him in the bud. When he comes out, we'll directly attack him. He has just advanced to the inferior ruler level and has already displayed such combat power. If he advances to the Supremes, won't he be able to wrestle with an Earth supremacy? How terrible would that be? Dao Wui of the Dao world's territory said coldly. The potential that Night Sorrow had displayed had already made him deeply afraid. Everyone understands the problem, but who should take action? This is no different from a one-for-one exchange. Sea Spirit's territory supremacy Hai Ming Ho said maliciously. Clan M. Chapter 2967. That was the truth. The Supremes present were all elites among the Supremes. They were definitely stronger than Night Sorrow. However, even if they succeeded in killing him here, they would be severely punished by the Eternal Supreme World. Even if they did not die, it would not be any better. Therefore, the question of who would do it was definitely a problem. That's a problem. In my opinion, let Wuji choose the Supremes to do it. Whoever is chosen will kill Night Sorrow. How does that sound? All the Supremes present agreed to deal with Night Sorrow. However, the question of who would do it was a problem. Supreme Yuling voiced her opinion when everyone was at a stalemate. Let Feng Wuji choose the one who would do it. Let Wuji choose the one who would do it. We believe that Wuji will choose the most suitable one. After Supreme Yuling voiced her opinion, everyone felt that there was no other way. Besides, Feng Wuji was present. Naturally, no one dared to object. They all agreed. However, at this moment, Feng Wuji stepped forward and said coldly, I don't want to be the bad guy. You can choose the one who would do it by drawing lots. Drawing lots? That's a good idea. It's obviously fairer. Wuji is wise. After Feng Wuji finished speaking, everyone agreed. Then, the 108 Supremes began to draw lots to kill Night Sorrow. To everyone, the probability of drawing one out of the 108 was very low. No one thought that they would be the unlucky one. Therefore, everyone began to draw lots. In the end, the one who was drawn was the Bone Abhijna of the Bone Realm. This Bone Abhijna was known as the White Bones Supreme. Among the 108 Supremes, his strength was below average. However, in everyone's opinion, his strength was more than enough to deal with Night Sorrow. White Bones Supreme, since you've been drawn, you have to accept the reality. If anything happens in the Bone Realm, go and make arrangements. Just come back within 50 years. If Night Sorrow doesn't die in the small world by then, kill him on the spot. After drawing lots, Feng Wuji did not say anything and left immediately. Autark Yuling walked over to Autark Whitebone's side and gave him some instructions. Autark Whitebone then left. Supremacy Yuling, you're letting Supremacy Whitebones leave just like that? Aren't you afraid that he won't return? Dao Wui asked in confusion when Sovereign Whitebone teleported back to the Bone Realm. In his opinion, he should keep an eye on Whitebone's supremacy and not let him go anywhere. If Night Sorrow didn't die, he would attack him directly. When water is full, it will overflow. It's not good to go overboard. In addition, we can rest assured that he won't dare to not come. Think about it, if it were you, would you dare to not come? Supreme Yuling sneered. The Supreme Martial Artists present thought for a moment and felt that no one would dare to offend so many territories at once. On the other side, after Night Sorrow killed all the people in Xian Bing's territory, The 10,000 Swords sect, Shao Tianxian, and the others were all summoned out of the heavenly abode to distribute the spoils of this battle. Only Wu Lingfei was left in the heavenly abode to cultivate because she had used up too much energy after undergoing nirvana consecutively and had just become an intermediate ruler. After distributing the resources and artifacts to everyone, Yishan said, "Normally, I should try to absorb the earthly sovereign's precepts and essence. However, I'm a little tired from the continuous cultivation. Next, I'm going to fight with everyone. What do you think? Now that I've advanced to the sovereign realm, it's time for us to change our target." "Ha, we should change our target. You took down Xian Bing's territory in the top 150. The top 1000 shouldn't be a problem. Even the top 100 is very likely. But since it's our target, let's set it higher. Let's aim to get into the top 64, which is the top 2 in the lesser realms. What do you all think?" The 10,000 Swords sect said excitedly after Night Sorrow spoke. If someone had told him that he could get into the top 100 before participating in the War of Providence, he wouldn't have believed it even if he was beaten to death. However, Yishang's strength gave him the confidence to do so. "I'm not sure how strong the 16th ranked Dao World territory is. If we can suppress them and enter the final battle for the championship, that'll be great. That way, we can get a lot of resources," Yuan Fengxue said with a face full of anticipation. The divine world had only advanced to the finals during its strongest era, and its best ranking had been 12th. Actually, we don't have to defeat the divine world territory if we want to be the first to advance. It'll be fine as long as we have enough points. Upon hearing Yuan Fengshue's words, Night Sorrow smiled and said, "In fact, we can hunt dire wolves continuously to obtain points." "That's right. Although the Dao World territory is strong, we don't have to fight them head-on." Yuan Fengshue's eyes lit up as he said, "Then what are we hesitating for? Let's hurry up and hunt dire wolves. Killing one will only give us 1 point. We still need to accumulate a lot. But what if we encounter that Supreme Wolf King again?" Murong Zhenlu looked at Yuan Fengxue and asked Night Sorrow, "Brother Yi, are you confident in dealing with it?" "I'm not sure. But we can give it a try. Even if we can't defeat it, we should be able to escape successfully," Night Sorrow said and looked at Xue Changtian. "Brother Xue, take out the battleship. We'll head to the grassland area immediately." "Okay." At that moment, Xue Changtian was also excited. He immediately took out the battleship and let everyone board. At that moment, Myriad Sword Sect suddenly said, "I keep feeling that something in this mountain peak is summoning me. Why don't you guys go? I'll stay here and investigate what's going on." "Oh. Could it be related to your expertise in swordsmanship?" Shao Tianxian glanced at the giant sword-shaped mountain peak and the stone pillar on top of it and asked doubtfully. "I'm not sure, but I feel that this summoning has no ill intentions." The master of the 10,000 swords frowned as he spoke, and then looked down at the mountain below as well. "Brother Wan, do you need our help? If you need anything, just tell us directly." Night Sorrow looked at Myriad Sword Sect. He was a little worried about leaving him here alone. "No need. Everyone still has to compete for first place with the Dao World territory. There's no need to waste time on me." Myriad Sword Sect looked at everyone one by one and said with a smile, "Anyway, the grassland is not far away. If there's anything, I'll send a voice transmission to everyone. You really don't need our help." Yuan Fengxue looked at Myriad Sword Sect worriedly, worried that he would encounter some danger alone. "There's really no need. I have a premonition that I have to do this myself," the master of the 10,000 swords said without hesitation and flew down. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Clan Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2968. Do we really not need help? I feel that Sword Sect is too embarrassed to trouble everyone, that's why they left so resolutely. Looking at Myriad Sword Sect's back view getting further and further away, Yuan Fengxue frowned and said. She was really worried. At this time, Shao Tianxian sighed and said, "Let him be. If anything happens, we'll immediately come to support. That's the only way. But we can set up a teleportation array here and another one in the grassland. If anything happens, we'll just teleport over. Yishang said as he flew to the top of the mountain and began to set up a teleportation array. After setting up the teleportation array, Night Sorrow returned to the battleship and rushed to the edge of the grassland with everyone. Although Night Sorrow had advanced to the ruler realm and had the strength to fight against supremes, the people of the heavenly realm were still very careful. When they were close to the grassland, Xiao Tianxian walked to Night Sorrow and said, "Night Sorrow, the dire wolves on the grassland seem to be endless. Should we come up with a suitable strategy? We can set up a formation, but there's no need. You guys don't have to make a move, I'll fight by myself." Yishang suddenly said as he glanced at the vast grassland. He knew that after a while, the Supreme Wolf King would definitely come. Night Sorrow wanted to test his strength. He wanted to see if he could really fight against the Supreme Wolf King. If he could defeat the Supreme Wolf King, then the people of the heavenly realm could kill the dire wolves with ease. Alright. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Xiao Tianxian understood what he meant. Although the others wanted to make a move, they restrained themselves, afraid of causing trouble for Night Sorrow. Then, the people who had just come out returned to the heavenly realm. You have to be careful in the battle with the Wolf King. Wu Lingfei, who knew that Night Sorrow would definitely fight with the Supreme Wolf King, couldn't help but remind him. Don't worry. If I can't win, I'll immediately escape. Night Sorrow said and used his movement technique to fly towards the grassland. Not long after entering the grassland, Night Sorrow activated the sea serpent's eye and observed. With a glance, he immediately discovered a large number of dire wolves hiding in the bushes. There are so many of them, and you still want to launch a sneak attack. How can there be such an opportunity? The dire wolves hiding in the bushes were all prepared to attack, but none of them attacked. From the looks of it, he seemed to be waiting for Night Sorrow to lower his guard and launch a surprise attack. After observing for a moment, Night Sorrow smiled and released his god's domain. At the same time, he sent an attack downwards. A stream of light shot out from Night Sorrow's hand and bombarded the grassland. Immediately, a dozen dire wolves were sent flying. The defense of these dire wolves wasn't very strong, so they died immediately after being hit by Night Sorrow's attack. Awoo! Seeing Night Sorrow make his move, the surrounding dire wolves all roared. Then, the entire grassland was filled with thunderous wolf howls. Soon after, the black eyes of some of the nearby dire wolves turned red. All of them rushed towards Yishan to kill him. Good. They're all points. Facing these dire wolves again, Night Sorrow's mood was completely different from the last time. He started to fight calmly. After advancing to the Dominator level, he was indeed not someone these dire wolves could fight against. Soon, a few hundred of them were killed by Night Sorrow. By the time Night Sorrow had killed a few hundred wolves, he had obtained more than 700 points. Suddenly, a huge wolf howl came from afar. You're finally here. Good timing. Hearing this wolf howl, Night Sorrow immediately looked into the distance and saw an incomparably huge Supreme Wolf King appear on the horizon. This time, there was no need for the Supreme Wolf King to chase after him. Night Sorrow used his movement technique to fly in its direction. Awoo! Seeing Night Sorrow flying towards it, the Supreme Wolf King seemed to have provoked the Supreme Wolf King. The Supreme Wolf King seemed to have suffered a great provocation. It howled at the sky and pounced towards Yishan. So it's a beast that only knows how to kill. It didn't seem like this the last time we met. The Supreme Wolf King was extremely ferocious, but Night Sorrow was sure that it was a half-alive, half-dead creature. It only had the instinct to kill and didn't have any other consciousness. It seemed to be different from the last time they met. However, Night Sorrow didn't have time to think. He shot out his reincarnation spear and fought against it. Although the Supreme Wolf King didn't have any consciousness, its strength was definitely that of a true Supreme. Boom! Night Sorrow didn't choose to dodge. Instead, he chose to take the Supreme Wolf King head-on. When he attacked, he immediately clashed with the Supreme Wolf King. After the collision, Night Sorrow was immediately sent flying and smashed into the ground. What powerful strength! A Supreme is indeed a Supreme. It's not easy to deal with. Night Sorrow, who was sent flying, felt his entire body aching. However, his body was very strong and didn't suffer any external injuries. He immediately praised. After Night Sorrow was sent flying, the other Dominator dire wolves immediately pounced towards him. Each of them was so ferocious that they seemed to have gone crazy. You don't have the qualifications to be fierce. Soft Dragon Roar. Facing these ordinary dire wolves, Night Sorrow didn't even make a move. He only used Soft Dragon Roar. After he used it, the hundreds of ordinary dire wolves in the surroundings were instantly shattered. Night Sorrow's points on his identity plate also increased. Awoo! After Night Sorrow killed these dire wolves, the Supreme Wolf King in the sky suddenly roared in anger. This Supreme Wolf King seems to be different. At this moment, Night Sorrow, who got up from the ground, discovered that the Supreme Wolf King's aura had changed again. Its aura seemed to have increased a little and became even more manic. Night Sorrow frowned and thought to himself, could it be that my killing of the ordinary dire wolves made the Supreme Wolf King stronger and made it even more ferocious? After coming to this conclusion, Night Sorrow didn't fight the Supreme Wolf King head-on when it attacked again. Instead, he used his movement technique to dodge and attack the other ordinary dire wolves again. From start to finish, he killed another 300+ dire wolves. After Night Sorrow killed these dire wolves, the Supreme Wolf King indeed changed again. Not only did its aura become stronger, but it also became more ferocious. Its huge wolf head also looked even more malevolent. Moreover, the Supreme Wolf King's god domain had turned from gray to dark red. It seems that my judgment was correct. Killing ordinary dire wolves made the Supreme Wolf King even stronger and more ferocious. It seems that I can't kill ordinary dire wolves for the time being. After Night Sorrow had this thought, he lured the Supreme Wolf King into the sky. Because their speed was too fast, the other ordinary dire wolves were completely left behind and couldn't catch up. Now we can fight normally. At this moment, Night Sorrow stopped running. Instead, he stayed in the sky and waited for the Supreme Wolf King to attack. Although the current Supreme Wolf King's strength had increased a little, it was still a lower Supreme Being. He had a chance. Clan M. Chapter 2969. Between Night Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King, who do you think will win? The battle between Night Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King had attracted the attention of all the Supremes who were watching the battle outside. Supreme Yuling asked at that moment. Most of the sovereigns remained silent on this question. Only Dao Wui said, I think Night Sorrow will definitely lose because he's choosing the environment. That's a sign of weakness. That makes sense, but I think Night Sorrow will win. Although the Supreme Wolf King looks very ferocious, it shouldn't be his match. When Supreme Yuling heard Dao Wui's answer, she pursed her lips and continued, however, no matter who wins, this is a good opportunity to observe him. Now, let's watch the battle carefully. I'll provide this information to the people of the Dao World territory. Good. Of course, that's good. Dao Wui's lips curled into a smile. He could not contact the people of the Dao World territory personally. However, as the host of this battle, Supreme Yuling could do that. After Yuling finished speaking, all the Supreme Beings turned their attention to Yishang. At that moment, one of the Supremes suddenly said, none of the Supremes guarding the 32 small worlds have been killed. If Night Sorrow can successfully kill the Supreme Wolf King, he will obtain 32,999 points. If that's really the case, the Dao World territory can only reverse the points by destroying the Divine World territory. Supreme Yuling, it's best to get the rulers of the Dao World territory to hurry over. Yes. This seat had forgotten about this matter. In the battle for Providence, killing the Supremes guarding the small worlds would normally obtain 999 points as a reward. However, if one killed the 32 small worlds, they would obtain 32,999 points as a reward. That was 31,968 points, which was a very difficult result to surpass. Even if there were still 80 to 90 years, it would be impossible for the Tao World Territory to win against the Divine World Territory using points. Everyone who did not want to see the Divine World rise again frowned and thought of countermeasures. Supreme Yuling directly contacted the people of the Tao World Territory and told them where Knight Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King were fighting, wanting them to reap the benefits. What? The Knight Sorrow of the God Realm is actually able to challenge the Supreme Wolf King on his own with the cultivation of a lower-level sovereign? After receiving Yuling's reminder, Yuling's expression changed drastically. The strongest expert in the Tao World's territory, Dao Jun, was immediately surprised. Right now, he was a half-step supreme, which was the peak of the ruler realm. He should have the strength to fight the Supreme Wolf King. However, when he encountered the Supreme Wolf King, he didn't fight it head-on and immediately fled. If he had heard that Knight Sorrow was fighting alone against the Supreme Wolf King, he would have regretted it. He felt that he should have challenged the Supreme Wolf King back then. Someone is challenging the Supreme Wolf King. Let's rush over immediately. After calming down, Dao Jun gathered the people of the Tao world who were fighting and told them that Knight Sorrow had challenged the Supreme Wolf King. What? That divine king, Knight Sorrow, had advanced to the ruler realm and could even fight against the Supreme Wolf King? How is this possible? Upon hearing Dao Jun talk about the battle between Knight Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King, Dao Tianming, who had once threatened to take him in as a slave, was immediately dumbfounded. Nothing is impossible. If he didn't have special potential, why would the limitless earthly supremacy deliberately target him and give him the earthly supremacy law and essence for us to covet? Dao Jun, who was relatively calm, ordered the people of the Tao world to board the battleship and fly toward the location where Knight Sorrow and the Supreme Wolf King were fighting. They were not close to the location of the battle, so it would take them about a month to arrive. Thus, Dao Jun was somewhat anxious. He was afraid that Knight Sorrow could really kill the Supreme Wolf King and obtain a large number of points, laws, and essence. Furthermore, he would absorb the earthly supremacy law and essence and his strength would reach an immeasurable level. Thus, after entering the grassland, he ordered, "Let's not rush to their location. Let's kill the wolf cubs first. The more we kill, the better." Leader, do you mean to let the Supreme Wolf King obtain the power of these dire wolves and become even stronger? Upon hearing Dao Jun's words, Dao Tianming immediately understood what he meant. However, Dao Tianming then said worriedly, "If the Supreme Wolf King becomes too strong, it will be very difficult for us to deal with it in the later stages. After all, apart from points, we can also obtain a large number of rewards by killing each Supremacy Guardian." The Tao World Territory had always been ranked in the top 20 of the entire Eternal Supreme World. Its results in the battle for Providence had always been very stable and it had almost never fallen out of the top 30. Their understanding of the contest was much greater than Yishan's. Dao Jun, Dao Tianming, and the others had long known that killing the dire wolves could increase the Supreme Wolf King's strength. Killing it could also obtain additional rewards in addition to points. Upon hearing Dao Tianming's words, Dao Jun snorted coldly. This is better than Knight Sorrow killing the Supreme Wolf King. That's true. How can someone from a trash territory want to defy the heavens? How is that possible? After saying that, Dao Tianming led the other people of the Tao World Territory to attack the dire wolves on the grassland. They killed along the way and very soon, they killed thousands of dire wolves. As they moved forward and killed along the way, Knight Sorrow had already fought more than 100 rounds with the Supreme Wolf King. Originally, Knight Sorrow had already vaguely gained the upper hand in the battle. However, as the Supreme Wolf King's strength increased, the battle gradually became strenuous. There were faint signs of defeat. What's going on? Why is the Supreme Wolf King getting stronger as it fights? Murong Zhenlu, who was in the spatial grotto heaven, frowned and said when he saw the Supreme Wolf King getting stronger. According to the battle situation just now, Knight Sorrow could have killed the Supreme Wolf King. There should be someone from a territory hunting the dire wolves. After the dire wolves are killed, the Supreme Wolf King will obtain power. It will also become increasingly out of control and become a monster that only knows how to kill. Night Sorrow, who had just taken a breath, immediately explained to everyone in the spatial grotto heaven. At the same time, he thought to himself, should I use the absolute technique comprehended from the Horn Clan's supreme law and essence? Awoo! Just as Night Sorrow was slightly distracted, the Supreme Wolf King attacked him again. This time, the Supreme Wolf King executed its innate absolute technique. Supreme Wolf King Claw. Its body was already very strong to begin with, so after it used the Supreme Wolf King Claw, its huge wolf claws immediately became bigger and longer in the void. He stretched out his hand and slapped towards Yishan's location. Yang Clan Sky-Splitting Art. In the face of this move, Night Sorrow immediately executed the Yang Clan Sky-Splitting Art to resist it. Boom! Night Sorrow, who had struck the golden heavenly halberd in the void, was suddenly slapped by the huge wolf claw and suddenly fell to the ground. Clan M. Chapter 2970. The Supreme Wolf King's attack this time was too powerful, far beyond Night Sorrow's imagination. Even if it absorbed the energy of the dire wolf, its strength shouldn't have increased so much. Night Sorrow, who slowly stopped after falling for tens of thousands of feet, couldn't help but sigh with emotion at the Supreme Wolf King's power. He naturally knew that this was the result of the Supreme Wolf King's ultimate skill, but the increase was too shocking. The strength of the attack was somewhat beyond his endurance. Awoo! At this moment, the Supreme Wolf King chased after them relentlessly from the sky. Once again, it used the Supreme Wolf King Claw on Night Sorrow. This attack was almost exactly the same as the previous one. Night Sorrow didn't choose to take it head-on. While using the Void Dragon movement technique to dodge, he activated the Treistrimsa Heaven Battle Secret technique. At this time, the Treistrimsa Heaven Battle Secret technique could increase his strength by almost 30 times. In an instant, he was countless times stronger. Come on. Let's continue to fight. You're not the only one who can increase his strength. After adjusting his state to the best, Night Sorrow, who was holding the golden heavenly halberd, thought about the ultimate skill that he had comprehended from the Supreme Law. He shot out the newly comprehended Supreme Tribulation Lightning Spear at the Supreme Wolf King. When the Supreme Tribulation Lightning Spear was shot out, countless Supreme Tribulation Lightning appeared in the void behind Night Sorrow's body and suddenly blasted toward the Supreme Wolf King. Boom! 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 Although the Supreme Wolf King's speed was fast, it was obviously not faster than the lightning. It was continuously bombarded by the Supreme Tribulation Lightning. Just when it was temporarily paralyzed by the Tribulation Lightning, Night Sorrow completely used the Golden Heavenly Halberd and shot out the essence of the Supreme Tribulation Lightning Spear. In an instant, dazzling lightning bloomed on the Golden Heavenly Halberd. It suddenly blasted toward the Supreme Wolf King. After Night Sorrow's attack, although the Supreme Wolf King recovered from the paralysis, its movements were obviously affected. It was directly bombarded at the neck. Its protective divine domain was immediately pierced, and a deep wound was also pierced at the neck. However, the Supreme Wolf King didn't bleed. This made Night Sorrow a little surprised. Could it be that this Supreme Wolf King is a puppet that was refined? That might really be the case. Xiao Tianxian, who was in the space paradise, immediately replied. He also felt that the Supreme Wolf King's condition was a little strange. Forget it, let's not think about these things. Just fight with peace of mind. No matter what, this battle was not in vain. After injuring the Supreme Wolf King, Night Sorrow took a deep breath and once again struck out with his reincarnation spear. This time, when he struck out with the reincarnation spear, he channeled the power of virtue into it. That was because the Wolf King looked like a puppet and a blood corpse. In any case, it wasn't a normal creature. He wanted to test out his power of virtue to see if it would work. Boom! This time, Night Sorrow's attack succeeded again. The power of virtue was obviously more effective than the Golden Heavenly Halberd. It was clearly a very holy power, but when it hit the divine king of the Supreme Alpha Wolf, it was extremely corrosive. The Supreme Wolf King howled in pain towards the sky. Looks like you should be a blood corpse refined by a supreme or earth sovereign. With the power of virtue taking effect, Knight Sorrow immediately felt much more relaxed. In the subsequent battle, he completely suppressed the Supreme Wolf King. Since the power of virtue is useful, it proves that killing you will give me the power of virtue. Good, this is very good. Now, Knight Sorrow was actually very worried about not having a place to obtain the power of virtue. Now that he realized that the power of virtue was effective on the Supreme Wolf King, he immediately became energetic. The Supreme Wolf King would become more and more weak in the future. No. This won't do. If this continues, Knight Sorrow will kill the Supreme Wolf King very soon. Dao Wui, who was watching this battle from the outside world, immediately roared when he saw Knight Sorrow use the power to restrain the Supreme Wolf King. Then, he looked at Supreme Yuling and said, "Supreme Yuling, do me a favor. Send a voice transmission to Dao Jun and ask him to kill the dire wolf faster." As he spoke, he handed over a bag of things to Supreme Yuling. He came from the Dao world territory, so he was naturally anxious when he saw Knight Sorrow's power. He. Dao brother, you're too polite. Supreme Yuling said politely, but in fact, she took the bag from Dao Wui. Then, she sent a voice transmission to Dao Jun, "Knight Sorrow is about to kill the Supreme Wolf King. You don't have enough time to rush over. Kill the dire wolves immediately, or it will be too late." What? Knight Sorrow is actually so powerful. Although Dao Jun did not make a move, the other people in the Dao world territory kept killing the dire wolves. At this point in the battle, they had already killed more than 2,000 dire wolves. Upon receiving Supreme Yuling's voice transmission, Dao Jun immediately took out his Hongjun umbrella and attacked the dire wolves on the grassland. Leader is using the Supreme Divine Weapon. I'm afraid things are not simple. Upon seeing Dao Jun start using the Supreme Divine Weapon, Hongjun Umbrella, Dao Tianming immediately realized what was happening on Knight Sorrow's side. At that moment, he could not help but grit his teeth and say, "I didn't expect an ant like you to really overturn the heavens." At the same time, he immediately used his Supreme Divine Weapon and attacked the dire wolves with all his might. After everyone in the Dao world territory attacked the dire wolves with all their might, the Supreme Wolf King, who was fighting Knight Sorrow, simply showed a straight increase in strength. After being suppressed by Knight Sorrow for a while, it actually advanced to the Middle Supremacy Realm. After advancing to the Middle Supremacy Realm, the Supreme Wolf King, who had been suppressed by Knight Sorrow's power of merit, instantly turned the situation around. It regained the upper hand. Furthermore, its strength was still increasing. On the other side, Dao Jun, Dao Tianming, and the others were still killing the dire wolves. Knight Sorrow, you can't continue fighting like this. It keeps getting stronger. Soon, you won't be able to hold on. Although Knight Sorrow was at a disadvantage, he still persisted in fighting the Supreme Wolf King and soon suffered some injuries. Upon seeing Knight Sorrow injured, Xiao Tianxian immediately reminded him. "I'm somewhat unwilling to retreat now. I still have some absolute arts that I haven't used yet. I want to try them. If I'm still no match for it, we'll retreat immediately." Knight Sorrow, who had swallowed 2 elixir pills and recovered to his best state, took a deep breath. He attacked the Supreme Wolf King with the absolute art that he had comprehended from the law and essence of the Horn Clan's supremacy. Destiny Reincarnation Spear. Not only did this spear contain the reincarnation attribute, but it also contained the destiny Dao that the Horn Clan's supremacy was proficient in. After it was shot out, even the sky and earth changed color. The Supreme Wolf King did not take this spear head-on. Instead, it chose to dodge. You want to dodge? If you dodge, you won't be called destiny. Upon seeing that the Supreme Wolf King wanted to dodge, Knight Sorrow sneered. The reincarnation spear of destiny contained the word destiny, which was extremely mysterious. If the enemy's strength did not surpass Night Sorrow's by too much, it would simply be impossible to dodge. It was obviously a mistake for the Supreme Wolf King to choose to dodge. Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. Human mobile version reading website, M. Chapter 2971. Boom. The Supreme Wolf King, who chose to dodge, was immediately pierced through by Night Sorrow's move. The huge wolf head was pierced by the golden heavenly halberd and flew into the void. The Supreme Wolf King did not die after suffering such a serious injury. It let out a huge roar and went completely crazy. Not only did its divine territory turn completely red, but it was also completely blood red. After completely turning blood red, the Supreme Wolf King's realm rose to the upper supremacy realm. Its aura increased tremendously again. Awoo! The Supreme Wolf King's strength had increased, and a blood-red horn had grown out of its forehead. After growing this horn, the Supreme Wolf King became even more ferocious. Furthermore, the blood-colored horn shot out a beam of light that shot towards Yishan. Although Night Sorrow set up the merit trap array and used his movement technique to dodge, he did not succeed in dodging this attack. After being hit by this blood-red beam of light, Night Sorrow felt like an ordinary person who had been struck by lightning. He felt like he was going to fall apart. How did it increase its realm again? I'm definitely not its match now. We should go. Night Sorrow, who was hit, felt very uncomfortable and could clearly feel the numbness in his body and the difference between him and the Supreme Wolf King. He immediately used the power of merit to cover himself and get rid of the blood-red energy. Although the effect was not complete, at least he could move normally. He immediately used the Void Dragon movement technique and started to run for his life. At this moment, the Supreme Wolf King had reached the upper supremacy realm. Both its strength and speed had increased tremendously. It could still keep up with Night Sorrow even when he tried his best to escape. This gave him considerable pressure. After all, he was not the only one facing the Supreme Wolf King. There were other people in the divine world in the space grotto heaven. If he could not escape now, the divine world would be completely annihilated except for the Myriad Sword sect. Ha ha ha. I didn't expect that the Supreme Wolf King would have such a move. It seems like he will be eliminated by the Supreme Wolf King without Dao Jun and the others. Upon seeing Night Sorrow being chased by the Supreme Wolf King, Dao Wui of the Dao world was the happiest. If he is eliminated now, then there will be a problem. Whitebone Sovereign is not here. Who among us will deal with him? Supreme Yuling said with a frown after Dao Wui finished. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, he continued, this Night Sorrow has displayed such terrifying combat strength. He definitely can't be left alive. Why don't we all draw lots again? I think that if Night Sorrow is eliminated now, you should take over. After all, you were the one who released Whitebone's Sovereign back to the Bone Realm. As soon as Supremacy Yuling finished speaking, a cold voice sounded. The one who spoke was the Earthly Sovereign, Feng Wuji. Hearing this voice, Supreme Yuling broke out in cold sweat. With a trembling voice, he replied, okay. Yuling solemnly obeys Master Wuji's order. At the same time, he prayed in his heart, hoping that Night Sorrow would not be eliminated so quickly. After all, it was not a big deal to use some small tricks in the battle for Providence. However, on this field, killing a participating cultivator would result in a huge backlash. If he attacked Night Sorrow, the gains would not make up for the losses. At the thought of this, Supreme Yuling secretly sent a voice transmission to Dao Jun, there's no need to kill the dire wolves anymore. The Supreme Wolf King has already taken the initiative and is chasing after Night Sorrow. I'll give you a position. All of you will go after Night Sorrow together. Do your best to kill him in the small world. Don't give him a chance to crush his identity nameplate. Yes. I understand, Supreme Yuling. Dao Jun, who had used the Hongjun umbrella to kill a large number of dire wolves, smiled when he heard this. His heart, which had been hanging in the air, finally relaxed. He had been extremely afraid that Yi Shang would steal the limelight of killing the Gatekeeper Prime. He looked at Dao Tianming and the others and said, "Don't fight with these trash anymore. Follow me to kill Night Sorrow. He has already been defeated by the Supreme Wolf King." "Good. That's great." Upon hearing this, Dao Tianming and the others immediately perked up. Then, everyone returned to the battleship and chased after the position Supreme Yuling had provided. "Very good. As long as we kill Night Sorrow, our Dao world territory will undoubtedly take first place in this small world." Upon seeing Dao Jun and the others chase after Night Sorrow, Dao Wui smiled proudly and said, Night Sorrow, even if you can escape from the Supreme Wolf King's pursuit, can you escape from our eyes? I'd like to see where you can escape to with your injured body." While Dao Wui was staring at Night Sorrow, the Supreme Wolf King's pursuit had already begun. Night Sorrow was indeed vexed about being chased by the Supreme Wolf King because the other party was simply too fast. As he fled, he was hit continuously. "What should we do about Brother Yi? From the looks of it, we won't be able to escape." The Supreme Wolf King, who had completely gone crazy, was so fast that it could continuously attack while chasing. This made Murong Zizhen, who was in the space grotto heaven, very anxious. As for Wu Lingfei and the others, they were already prepared to fight. As long as Night Sorrow spoke, they would come out to fight. However, given how valiant the Supreme Wolf King was, Night Sorrow naturally would not let them come out to die. He thought for a while and his eyes suddenly lit up. Although the Supreme Wolf King's speed is fast, it's definitely not faster than the teleportation Dharma array. We can use the teleportation Dharma array to teleport to the mountain where Brother Wan is at. The Supreme Wolf King definitely won't be able to track us from such a long distance. That's right. There's still the teleportation array. How could I have forgotten about this? This teleportation array was originally meant to save Brother Wan, but I didn't expect it to save us instead. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's words, Murong Zizhen, who had originally been in despair, immediately became spirited. It seems like the saying, "A crafty rabbit has 3 burrows" makes sense. After thinking of a way to deal with this, Night Sorrow's face also revealed a trace of a smile. After that, under the pursuit of the Supreme Wolf King, he led the people of the God Realm territory and successfully escaped from the Supreme Wolf King's pursuit through the teleportation Dharma array. Building the teleportation Dharma array was something that Night Sorrow did casually. He did not expect that at the critical moment, it would save everyone's lives. After appearing at the other end of the teleportation Dharma array, he immediately let out a sigh of relief. After destroying the teleportation Dharma array, he apologized to everyone. "I'm sorry. I put everyone in danger, it's all my fault." "What's wrong with that? Everyone has been through many things in the wind and rain, don't worry about this matter anymore." After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Jin Xian immediately spoke up. He did not care at all, and felt that this matter was very exciting. Xiao Tianxian said in a calm voice. "For the future of the God Realm territory, we should do things as calmly as possible. There's nothing wrong with this. Next time, everyone should pay more attention." "Yes. I will pay attention. This time, we have really underestimated the Supreme Wolf King's combat power." Night Sorrow nodded. In this battle, if the Supreme Wolf King had not advanced to the level of an upper supremacy, he would have very likely killed it. However, there were no ifs in everything. Speaking of this matter, his choice was too risky. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2972. Brother Yi, don't say it like that. Don't you want to kill the Supreme Wolf King and get a lot of points for the Heavenly Realm? Night Sorrow was blaming himself. Jin Xian immediately comforted him. At this time, Xiao Tianxian suddenly said, "Not good. Brother Wan is in trouble and is asking me for help." "What? Brother Wan is in trouble? Where is he?" Shui Changtian immediately asked after Xiao Tianxian finished speaking. "Under the mountain, about 100,000 miles away from us." Xiao Tianxian pointed at the foot and then looked at the huge stone pillars that were pressing down on the mountain. but the way to enter is not to directly sneak in. Instead, it is to use the teleportation array in the stone pillars. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go and save him immediately. Yuan Fengxue looked at the stone pillars and said anxiously. After knowing that Myriad Sword sect was in danger, her face was full of worry. Brother Wan is indeed in danger, but Knight Soro's injuries are not light. I think we should wait for him to recover before we go down. Otherwise, the gains will not make up for the losses. Although Xiao Tianxian was also worried for Myriad Sword sect, after looking at Knight Sorrow, he still asked everyone to calm down. But, Yuan Fengxue wanted to say something, but after looking at Knight Sorrow, she held back. At this time, Knight Sorrow shook his head and said, "How about this, I will enter Brother Zhao's space grotto heaven to recover, and you guys go. If there is a battle, I will appear immediately." Good. This way, we won't delay anything. Very good. Hearing this, Yuan Fengshue's serious expression relaxed a little. After that, Knight Sorrow and Wu Lingfei entered Xiao Tianchuan's space grotto heaven together. When everyone was walking towards the thick stone pillars, Xiao Tianxian said, "Brother Wan entered the mountain and found a palace. There were many fierce beasts in the palace. These fierce beasts were guarding a huge sword. The sword was of supreme grade, but it was 100 times stronger than the immortal slaying sword in his hand. It was definitely a supreme grade supreme divine artifact. However, when he wanted to take the sword, he was discovered by several powerful fierce beasts. Right now, he is being chased by these ferocious beasts. Is he injured?" Yuan Fengxue asked worriedly. Her feelings towards the Myriad Sword sect were different from others. Xiao Tianxian glanced at Yuan Fengxue and said, "He's definitely injured, but his life isn't in danger for now." Phew. That's good. Yuan Fengshue's tense nerves relaxed a little. Then, under the lead of Xiao Tianxian, the group found an extremely hidden teleportation portal near the stone pillar. Activate it with Eternal God crystals and teleport in. Where were the people from the heavenly realm sent to? Why isn't he in the image? After the people from the firmament world were teleported out, the people watching from the outside world were puzzled. Ever since Knight Sorrow and the others had entered the small world, they had been under the surveillance of Supreme Yu Ling and the others. Now, they had vanished into thin air. While everyone was puzzled, Yu Ling frowned and said, "That's not right. Normally speaking, if they disappeared from the scene, then that was to be eliminated. They should appear in front of us. This is obviously not the case. Yes. This is obviously a little strange. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be a world within a small world in the small world." Dao Wui also frowned. He couldn't understand what was happening in front of him either. The other supreme beings present were the same. They really couldn't understand why this was happening. They could only ask Supreme Yu Ling to invite Feng Wuji. Feng Wuji came to the deck of the battleship and looked at the stone pillar in the image. He said in a low voice, "I didn't notice when I saw the stone pillar the first 2 times. Now, it seems that this is an ancient Dharma array used to suppress evil beings. If I'm not wrong, there should be some kind of evil being under this mountain peak." Evil being? Hearing Feng Wuji's words, Supreme Yu Ling and the others' faces darkened. This was especially so for Dao Wui, because the people from the Dao world were in this small world. If some kind of powerful evil being was released, the people from the Dao world would definitely be implicated. Don't worry, everyone. Let's take a look first. Aren't the people from the firmament world scouting the way now? If the situation isn't good, we'll summon all the participants in the small world. Feng Wuji said firmly and continued to observe the stone pillar in the image. However, after observing for a while, he didn't speak again. Many supreme beings were also watching these stone pillars. However, after watching for a long time, there was no change in the image. At that moment, Dao Wui hurriedly asked Supreme Yu Ling to send a message to the people from the Dao world so that they wouldn't continue chasing this way. Originally, they had already told Dao Jun and the others about Knight Sorrow's injury and their location. The people from the Tao world were all chasing this way. After receiving Supreme Yuling's reminder, Dao Jun immediately ordered, "Let's change direction and not chase after the people from the firmament world." "Leader, what happened? Now that Knight Sorrow is injured, isn't it a good chance for us to kill him?" Dao Tianming asked in confusion. "What do you know? Now that the people from the firmament world have mistakenly entered the ancient Dharma array used to suppress evil beings, they might provoke an unparalleled evil being. We don't even have to do anything." Dao Jun frowned and said, "In addition, we have to be prepared to teleport out at any time." All right. Those people from the firmament world are really good at causing trouble. When Dao Tianming heard Dao Jun's words, he couldn't help muttering, "They're either challenging the Supreme Wolf King or... Aren't they from the Chaos Territory? They seem to be escaping. Let's kill them." Before Dao Tianming could finish, he saw the people from the Chaos Territory fleeing frantically on their battleships. According to the Tao world's way of doing things, they naturally wouldn't let go of a good opportunity to deal with them. After Dao Tianming finished speaking, Dao Jun also said, "Now that the threat from the firmament world has been eliminated, the Chaos Territory and the other two territories are our biggest opponents. We can't let them go. Follow me and kill them." After Dao Jun gave the order, everyone from the Tao world took out their divine weapons and attacked the people from the Chaos Territory. Howl! However, just as they attacked, a huge wolf howl came from the horizon. Then, the Supreme Wolf King, who was covered in blood and extremely violent, appeared in the sky. Oh no! How can the Supreme Wolf King be so powerful? Dao Jun used his soul power to scan the Supreme Wolf King and his hair stood on end. He roared, "Run! This thing isn't something we can deal with." At that moment, he completely understood why the Chaos Territory had escaped so thoroughly. It turned out that the Supreme Wolf King was chasing them. However, after the people from the Tao world attacked, the Supreme Wolf King locked its attention on them. Genius remembered the address of this site in 1 second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website, M. Chapter 2973. Thank you all so much. Everyone in the Chaos Territory laughed when they saw the Supreme Wolf King lock its attention on the Tao Realm territory. However, they did not stay there. Instead, they drove their battleships and disappeared into the horizon. Then, the Supreme Wolf King, who was completely crazy and only had a killing intent, immediately chased after the people in the Tao world territory. Being chased by the Supreme Wolf King, the people in the Tao world territory went crazy. They drove their battleships to escape continuously. However, after fleeing for a long time, they could not shake it off. Furthermore, during the chase, the Supreme Wolf King kept attacking the people in the Tao world territory, almost shattering their battleships. Under such circumstances, Dao Jun ordered, "Quickly find the people in the other territories and use them as scapegoats." Okay. That's the only way. Upon hearing this, Dao Tianming's eyes lit up. He started to drive his battleship to find the people in the other territories. For a moment, the entire small world was in chaos. The people in the Divine World territory, who were not affected by the normal disturbance, had already entered the inner space of the mountain through the teleportation array. This was a very magnificent bluestone palace. Standing at the entrance of the palace, Xiao Tianxian and the others were like ants looking at the door of a room. Brother Wan is in the depths of the palace. Let's go in. According to what he said, we won't encounter any danger when we enter the palace. Xiao Tianxian confidently observed the entrance of the palace and said to everyone, "Wait a minute, let me observe again." At that moment, Knight Sorrow, who was originally recuperating, suddenly said. Then, he let Xiao Tianxian let him out and used the sea serpent's eye to carefully observe everything around him. Then, he nodded and said, "Everyone can enter. If you encounter anything difficult to solve, wake me up." After saying that, Knight Sorrow re-entered Xiao Tianchuan's space grotto heaven to recuperate. The injuries caused by the Supreme Wolf King were extremely special and had a very strong corrosive attribute. If Knight Sorrow did not have the power of merit, it would really be difficult to recover. While Night Sorrow was recuperating, Xiao Tianxian led the group deeper into the palace. As they walked, Xiao Tianxian frowned and said, "Before entering this place, I was still able to contact Brother Wan. Now, he's not responding at all. Could something have happened to Brother Wan?" Murong Ziliu asked worriedly. Everyone else in the God realm began to worry for the Myriad Sword sect. "I'm not sure. However, we should still speed up our progress to avoid any delays," Xiao Tianxian said, then led the people of the God realm into the palace. Merely, the palace was truly enormous. From their point of view, it simply did not resemble a palace at all. Instead, it was a vast world. The horizon, mountains, rivers, deserts, everything was there. Brother Wan said that he didn't want to stop, so he must be going through the desert ahead. "Everyone, be careful." After walking for a while, they arrived in front of a desert. Xiao Tianxian discussed with the group and felt that there was no need to interrupt Night Sorrow in this situation. After observing for a while, they walked into the desert and continued to walk forward. "I wonder how long it will take for us to walk out of this desert." The group flew close to the desert for 6 to 7 days, but they still could not see the end of the desert. Yuan Fengxue of the Myriad Sword sect said anxiously, "If we keep walking, it shouldn't take long. After all, Brother Wan hasn't been here for long." Xiao Tianxian judged that the battle between Night Sorrow and Supreme Wolf King did not take too much time. "I hope so," Yuan Fengxue said with an ugly expression. Actually, they were not flying too low, but the desert in front of them was still boundless. They could not see the end at all. Just like that, another month passed, and everyone realized that something was wrong. The time did not match at all. Xiao Tianxian contacted the Myriad Sword sect again, but still did not get any response. He sighed and said, "I'm afraid we're trapped by a formation. We can only ask Night Sorrow to come out." Brother Yi is proficient in formations. Ask him to come out." Murong Zizhen nodded. Although he did not want to disturb Night Sorrow, they really could not find a way out of the desert. If they continued walking, the result would be the same. What happened? After being awakened, Night Sorrow came out of the space grotto heaven and asked curiously. At this time, his injuries had almost recovered and he was trying to absorb the earthly supreme's rules and essence, but the results were not great. "We're trapped in the desert in front of us and can't find a way out," Xiao Tianxian said with a gloomy expression. To the group, being trapped here was a small matter, but it was a big matter if they were delayed in saving the Myriad Sword sect. "I see. Let me take a look." Night Sorrow immediately flew into the air and opened the sea serpent's eye to observe. With this, he immediately understood why the group could not get out. It turned out that the entire desert was a trap formation. If they walked aimlessly through it, they would not be able to reach the end even if they walked for 100 or 1,000,000 years. This desert is a huge trap formation. The person who can set up such a formation should be at least an earthly supreme. After observing, Night Sorrow said to the group and began to try to break the formation. With the help of the sea serpent's eye, the process of breaking the formation was quite smooth. It took about 7 days to successfully break the trap formation. However, just as Yishang succeeded in breaking the formation, Yishang's eyes lit up. The desert beneath their feet instantly underwent an earth-shaking change. The fine sand that was originally still all began to flow like seawater. It formed more than a dozen sand pillars that reached the sky. After these sand pillars formed, they immediately swallowed the people of the heavenly realm. "Everyone, quickly enter my space grotto heaven. I can escape faster if I escape alone." Seeing these sand pillars swallowing everyone, Night Sorrow immediately shouted and kept everyone in the heavenly realm into his space grotto heaven. Using his movement skill, he avoided the sand pillars that reached the sky. Why are there still living creatures? Night Sorrow's speed and body strength were already comparable to an ordinary earthly supreme. It was not difficult for him to avoid these sand pillars. However, when he was about to leave the sea of sand, he was stopped by a strange ferocious beast. This ferocious beast was 10,000 feet tall, larger than an ordinary mountain. When Night Sorrow was about to fly out of the sea of sand, it immediately stretched out its huge head and 8 tentacles from the sea of sand. Compared to its body, these tentacles looked slender and long. However, when it waved at Night Sorrow, it looked like a mountain peak was being lifted up. Its power was extremely shocking. What kind of monster is this? Judging from its aura, it doesn't seem to be at the sovereign realm. Could this be a earthly supreme ferocious beast? Xiao Tianxian, who was in the space grotto heaven, said doubtfully when he saw the monster in front of him. Genius remembered the address of this site in a second. Human Mobile Version Reading Website. Chapter 2974. It is indeed at the supreme level. Its strength should be slightly weaker than the Supreme Wolf King after it went berserk. After observing Night Sorrow with the sea serpent's eye, he raised his golden heavenly halberd and charged forward. At the same time, he kept everyone else into his own space grotto heaven. Because this beast's strength is at the supreme level, the others can't fight against it at all. Staying outside is tantamount to courting death. Night Sorrow, your injuries have just recovered a little. You must be careful in battle. After being kept in the grotto heaven, Xiao Tianxian said with a solemn expression. Murong Zhenlu and the others also spoke. Facing a supreme level beast, they are powerless. They can only use this method to cheer for Night Sorrow. Yuan Fengxue kept looking into the distance, hoping to see the shadow of Myriad Sword Sect. He is worried that something will happen to Myriad Sword Sect. Boom! Blocking in front of the strange beast, Night Sorrow waved his golden heavenly halberd and smashed it on one of its tentacles. Although Night Sorrow's figure looks very small compared to the beast, his strength is not small at all. With a smash of the golden heavenly halberd, the beast's hard as iron tentacle was immediately blasted into a large hole and the incoming tentacle was blasted back. On the surface of the tentacle, a lot of dark green liquid flowed out. From the looks of it, it should be the beast's blood. Awoo! After being injured by a blow, this beast with 8 tentacles, which is obviously different from an octopus, immediately went berserk. It crazily swung the other 7 uninjured tentacles and smashed them at Night Sorrow. Although these 7 tentacles are incomparably huge, they cooperate very well. Not only did they not interfere with each other, but they also formed a pincer attack on Night Sorrow. It feels like every tentacle is attacking him. From Night Sorrow's point of view, it is as if several mountains are smashing towards him. He has no room to dodge at all. Since there is no way to dodge, then let's face it head-on. Don't think that you are invincible just because you are big. I will kill you and help me advance further. Facing the concentrated attacks of the tentacles, Night Sorrow roared and used the 33 Heaven's secret combat technique to increase his strength. After that, he wielded the golden heavenly halberd and unleashed the human spear and a version of the reincarnation spear art. This move was similar to the Myriad Sword Sect's unity of man and sword. Night Sorrow fused with the golden heavenly halberd and instantly became a huge heavenly halberd. With the power of the heavenly halberd, it blasted towards the many tentacles of the ferocious beast. Clang! 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 Although this beast was huge and had a tough body, its body was too big, which made the strength of its tentacles inferior to Night Sorrow's. He was blasted by the reincarnation spear technique that was one with the spear. 3 tentacles were instantly pierced through. In terms of raw power, the current Yi Shang was not at all inferior to this ferocious beast. Furthermore, in terms of physical strength and speed, he was clearly superior to his opponent. To a sovereign, this wild beast was an absolute overlord, but Night Sorrow didn't fear it at all. Roar! After being pierced by Night Sorrow's tentacles again, the wild beast became even angrier. This time, after a loud roar, it pulled its body and tentacles into the sand. After about 10 breaths, its entire body drilled out of the sand. What a behemoth! Even though Night Sorrow was experienced and knowledgeable, Night Sorrow couldn't help but praise the figure of this wild beast. On each tentacle of this wild beast, there were thousands of suction cups, and each suction cup was larger than Night Sorrow's unity of man and spear. In front of it, Night Sorrow was even smaller than an ant facing a giant dragon. Primordial true fire. Just as Night Sorrow was lamenting that this wild beast was too huge, the wild beast suddenly spoke in human language, and then suddenly spat out an extremely hot flame. This flame is so terrifying. I have to avoid its edge. When this flame was spat out, even Night Sorrow, who had an extremely strong body, felt like he was being roasted. He immediately used his movement technique to dodge. After becoming a supreme being, he was still using the same movement technique as before. At this moment, he felt that it wasn't enough. Although he dodged very quickly, he was still burned by some of the flames. After being burned by these flames, Night Sorrow immediately turned back into his human form. His entire body was burning, and his entire body was paralyzed. He couldn't move at all. Awoo! At this moment, the wild beast roared towards the sky and raised its foot to step on Night Sorrow, wanting to crush him to death. Brother Yi, be careful. In the space paradise, Jin Xian couldn't help but roar when he saw what happened to Night Sorrow. Everyone else was also worried about Night Sorrow. Even Yuan Fengshue's thoughts were pulled away from the Myriad Sword sect. Phoenix Battle Armor, absorb the flames for me. I can use this flame to refine you into a sovereign artifact. At this moment, Night Sorrow suddenly roared and used the Phoenix Battle Armor on his body to absorb the flames. The Phoenix Battle Armor's predecessor was the Azure Phoenix Battle Armor refined by Jing Yun. Now, it had been refined into the Divine King's Peak Battle Armor. At this moment, after absorbing the terrifying flames, the Phoenix Battle Armor started burning. Night Sorrow's pain from being burned by the flames immediately disappeared, and he also recovered from his paralyzed state. After recovering, Night Sorrow held the golden heavenly halberd and suddenly blasted the lightning reincarnation spear above his head. After this move, terrifying lightning exploded around the reincarnation heavenly halberd. Night Sorrow, who was holding the reincarnation heavenly halberd, raised it and directly pierced through the wild beast's foot. After that, Night Sorrow held the golden heavenly halberd and floated above the void. The wild beast let out an earth-shattering roar. If you don't have any other skills, you can only be slaughtered by me. After a few exchanges, Night Sorrow had already figured out the wild beast's strength. This wild beast basically didn't have any divine soul power, and basically relied on its tyrannical body to fight. In terms of body, Night Sorrow wasn't weaker than others at all. When fighting with it, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage at all. At this point in the battle, he could already confirm that although this wild beast was terrifying, it shouldn't be his opponent. Awoo! Facing Night Sorrow, the wild beast was already an honorable and had the ability to speak human language. However, it didn't. Instead, it howled. Then, it opened its mouth and tried to swallow Night Sorrow. Not good. This attack looked very ordinary. But soon, Night Sorrow realized that something was wrong. This wild beast's attack was definitely not simple. It contained a very mysterious law. At the same time, he waved the golden heavenly halberd and attacked crazily, wanting to rely on his strength to escape. But this time, no matter how he attacked, he didn't achieve any effect. At this moment, Night Sorrow felt that even the heavens and earth could be swallowed. He couldn't escape at all. In the end, he couldn't resist and was swallowed by the wild beast. What kind of wild beast is this? Its previous attacks weren't considered strong for an honorable. But this time, it's even more terrifying than a crazy wolf king. In the process of being swallowed, Night Sorrow secretly thought in his heart. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 2975. There was no way to resist the beast's devouring. Night Sorrow had not experienced this feeling for a long time. In the process of being devoured, he thought of the people in the God realm in his space hollow. He felt that he should not give up no matter what. Brother Yi, what happened? In the process of Night Sorrow being devoured by the beast, Murong guides the way in his space hollow and asks puzzledly. He guessed that Night Sorrow had been devoured by the beast, but he did not dare to believe this fact, so he asked to confirm. Hearing this, Night Sorrow said helplessly, "We have been devoured by the beast, but we still need to observe what will happen. I will do my best to protect everyone. Being devoured into my chaos space, who are you still dreaming of protecting?" Yi Shang had just opened his mouth when a deep, deep voice rang out. "Beast?" Hearing this voice, Night Sorrow vigilantly used his godly soul to check the surroundings. But the surroundings were completely chaotic, so he could not sense anything. "This king is the Chaos Supreme Beast King. You dare to enter the territory ruled by this king, prepare to die." After the beast that called itself the Chaos Supreme Beast King roared, it released its godly soul power and attacked Night Sorrow. It turned out that it could not only use its strength to attack. On the contrary, its godly soul power was very strong, but it did not use it in the battle just now. At this time, in the chaos space, after it was used, Night Sorrow immediately felt a strong pressure. His godly soul felt as if it was being torn into pieces, and the pain was unbearable. But he did not know where to start and how to resist the beast's attack. He could only try his best to use his godly soul to resist this terrifying attack. But Night Sorrow's resistance did not have any power under the Chaos Supreme Beast King's pressure. Not only was the Chaos Supreme Beast King's body huge, but its godly soul power was also unusually strong. To Night Sorrow, its godly soul was like a giant. "Am I going to be killed by it just like this? No, I can't die. Behind me is the entire God realm." Night Sorrow knew that if he was killed by the beast in front of him, the realm of the gods would not be able to achieve a good result in this battle for providence. In that case, the divine world's territory and the divine world would definitely be attacked by other realms. That kind of situation was unimaginable. After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to the people in the space cave, "Crush your identity plates and teleport everyone out. I'll stay and fight it. Don't worry, as long as I don't die, I will bring good results to the divine realm." With so many people from the divine world around, he couldn't do as he pleased. He was prepared to let them all leave so that he could give it his all. "No. Night Sorrow. We will fight alongside you. Rather than leaving, we might as well die here with you. Because if you're not here, the God realm will cease to exist." After Night Sorrow finished speaking, Xiao Tianxian immediately retorted. Neither he nor anyone else from the God world had any intention of leaving. To them, leaving meant giving up. It was no different from dying here. Yuan Fengxue also said, "That's right. Brother Yi, although our strength isn't very strong, we can still be of help if we stay. Don't give up on us. Everyone should leave. That way, I can give it my all." Hearing everyone's words, Night Sorrow was naturally very moved. However, he didn't have the slightest confidence in facing the beast in front of him. He didn't want everyone to die here. No one needs to leave. I will solve the problem in front of us. At this moment, Wu Lingfei, who had been recuperating, suddenly opened her mouth and said, "HM. You will solve it? Lingfei, you can fight against the Supreme Chaos Beast King?" After Wu Lingfei finished speaking, Yuan Fengxue immediately asked doubtfully. The others were also puzzled. They felt that if even Night Sorrow couldn't solve the problem, logically speaking, Wu Lingfei shouldn't be able to solve it. "I don't have the ability to fight against the Supreme Chaos Beast King, but I can let Night Sorrow have the ability to fight against it." Wu Lingfei said and continued, "I have a secret method that can help Night Sorrow increase the power of his divine soul in a short time. It should be no problem to use it to fight against the beast in front of us. Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up and do it. How do you need us to cooperate?" Xiao Tianxian said anxiously. He was in Night Sorrow's space cave and could clearly feel how Night Sorrow's divine soul was being suppressed. "Just wait." Wu Lingfei said and transmitted her voice to Night Sorrow, who was fighting against the Supreme Chaos Beast King. She said, relax your divine soul. I will help you increase the power of your divine soul. How? Night Sorrow also asked doubtfully. He didn't know that Wu Lingfei had such a method. Divine Soul Dual Cultivation Technique. Wu Lingfei said and released her divine soul, intertwining it with Night Sorrow's divine soul. In an instant, Night Sorrow felt that his divine soul, which was being suppressed by the Supreme Chaos Beast King, became comfortable. It was like a suffocating person inhaling a breath of air. However, soon, Night Sorrow found that this divine soul dual cultivation technique was very mysterious. It was not as simple as just inhaling a breath of air. His and Wu Lingfei's divine souls were soon completely intertwined, and there was a feeling of harmony. That feeling was very pleasant. Although the heat was very short, it was more strange than the combination of physical bodies. At that moment, he even completely forgot about the suppression of the Supreme Chaos Beast King's divine soul. He was completely immersed in the aftertaste of Wu Lingfei. Don't worry about the Supreme Chaos Beast King. But soon, Wu Lingfei withdrew her divine soul with a red face and ended this short dual cultivation. After Wu Lingfei withdrew her divine soul, Night Sorrow was surprised to find that his divine soul had improved by a lot. In an instant, the Supreme Chaos Beast King was completely unable to suppress him. Break for me. Realizing that the Supreme Chaos Beast King's divine soul could not suppress him, Night Sorrow shouted and completely released the power of his divine soul, using it to launch a counterattack. Then, Night Sorrow found that his divine soul strength had increased, and in terms of divine soul strength, it had surpassed the Supreme Chaos Beast King. He chased after it and fought fiercely. Very soon, the Supreme Chaos Beast King was completely suppressed by Night Sorrow. Thank you, Lingfei. After suppressing the Supreme Chaos Beast King, Night Sorrow left and sent a message to Wu Lingfei. After the two of them went through a spiritual exchange, he was completely embarrassed to call her Aunt Fei or Sister Fei. Fortunately, he directly called her Lingfei. On the other hand, Wu Lingfei was very relieved and said calmly, "You're welcome, protecting the God realm is not your responsibility alone." In fact, in her heart, there were already waves that could not be suppressed. In the past, Night Sorrow was just a junior in her heart, but after thousands of years of contact, her feelings for Night Sorrow were completely different. Genius remembered this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website.